My parents forced me to hand over 50% of my paycheck to my golden child brother. Years later, I finally got my revenge at my wedding. My name is Aurora, and I am 30 years old. I have always had a problematic connection with my younger brother, James, who is 10 years old and male. Growing up, our parents continuously preferred him, causing a lot of conflict between us. They would praise James for even the smallest accomplishments while scarcely mentioning my own. Our family dynamics were not always like this. When I was younger, before James was born, my parents made me feel loved and supported. They'd take me to the park, give me bedtime tales, and proudly hang my artwork on the fridge. However, everything changed when James came. James was always destined to be the golden child. Our parents adored him, frequently ignoring my needs in the process. As we grew older, our preference simply grew stronger. I distinctly recall my 10th birthday. I had been begging for a bicycle for months, leaving clues and magazine clippings about the house. When the big day arrived, I eagerly opened my presents, only to discover clothing and books. My parents explained that a bicycle was prohibitively expensive. Only 2 weeks later, they presented James with a brand new bike for no apparent reason. When I inquired why he got one and I didn't, they answered, "James needs more exercise. You're fine without one." This pattern persisted during our childhood. When I made honor roll in middle school, my parents barely looked at the certificate. When James received a B+ on a single test, the entire family went out to supper to celebrate. As we approached adolescence, the disparity in how we were treated became more evident. When I was 16, I obtained my first part-time work in a neighborhood bookshop. I was ecstatic to finally have my own source of income and began saving for education. However, my enthusiasm was short-lived. James, then 13, protested to our parents that it was unfair that I spent money while he did not. Instead of encouraging him to wait until he was old enough to obtain his own work, our parents demanded an unreasonable amount. They requested I give James half of my monthly profits. I was taken aback and attempted to protest, but they threatened to fire me if I refused. Reluctantly, I consented, watching my brother spend half of my hard-earned money on video games and junk food. This incident laid the stage for James to feel entitled to my belongings. Throughout high school, he would frequently borrow my possessions without my permission, clothes, devices, and even my automobile once I obtained my license. If I dared to protest, my parents would lecture me on the value of sharing with my brother. They never seemed to think James should learn to respect other people's property. Despite the continual favoritism, I studied hard in school, believing that academic accomplishment would eventually gain me some attention from my parents. When I was accepted to my dream institution with a partial scholarship, I was overjoyed. I went home to tell my parents, expecting a proud reaction. Instead, they provided a cold response saying, "That's nice, honey," before immediately shifting the conversation to James's last football game. In contrast, when James was accepted into a local community college a few years later, our parents threw him a magnificent celebration. They invited the entire extended family, scheduled catering, and even hired a live band. As I watched them celebrate James's subpar performance, I couldn't help but feel hurt and resentful. The final straw occurred during my second year of college. I'd been saving for months to purchase a high-quality camera for my photography class. Photography had become my passion, a creative outlet for dealing with the stress of my familial situation. I had done significant research and had finally discovered the right camera for my budget. I returned home for Christmas break, excited to finally make my purchase. However, when I went to collect my savings, I realized that a large amount was missing. I quickly discovered that James had taken the money without permission to purchase a new gaming console. When I confronted him, he dismissed it, stating I could simply save up again. Our parents refused to force him to return the console or repay me, dismissing my anguish with a nonchalant, "You should have hidden your money better." This encounter was my breaking point. I knew that regardless of what I did, I would never be a priority in my family. Following that, I distanced myself as much as possible. I worked extra jobs to support myself through college, rarely returning home for trips. When I did, James made snarky remarks about how I thought I was too good for the family. Our parents never reprimanded his behavior, constantly commenting on how I had changed and gotten distant from them. Despite the emotional toll, I graduated with honors and found a nice position in marketing. At my new job, I met Ryan, a 32-year-old male who would become my rock and biggest supporter. We've been dating for 5 years, and he's been quite tolerant about my familial circumstances. Ryan's family is friendly and accepting, demonstrating what healthy family connections should be like. Ryan proposed 6 months ago while on a surprise weekend getaway. It was a lovely moment, and I was so excited to begin planning our future together. However, the excitement of our engagement was swiftly replaced by the fear of dealing with my family during the wedding planning process. After considerable thought and consideration, I decided not to invite James or my parents to the wedding. I want our special day to be full with love and optimism, not the negativity and animosity that has plagued my relationship with my family. Last week, my mother contacted me in tears, asking to know why they hadn't received wedding invitations yet. I took a big breath and said that, given our past, I did not feel comfortable having them attend the wedding. She accused me of being selfish and attempting to punish them, while rejecting my feelings as usual. My father then called, stating I was crushing James's heart by omitting him from such a special day. Apparently, James had been telling everyone he was going to be my best man, despite the fact that we hadn't spoken for years. The arrogance of his assumption had me stunned. I held firm and told them my decision was final. This resulted in James bombarding my phone with angry texts, calling me every name in the book. He accused me of being jealous of him and attempting to make myself feel significant. It was as if he had rebuilt our upbringing in his imagination, making himself the victim. My parents have threatened to cut me out of their will if I don't invite them all to the wedding. This threat may have worked years ago, but I no longer expect or want anything from them. Ryan fully supports my decision, recognizing how toxic my familial dynamics are. He has offered to handle any further correspondence with them in order to protect me from their manipulative tactics. Some of my pals, however, have recommended that I simply invite them to preserve the peace. They claim that if I do not have my family present at my wedding, I will regret it. Their remarks have sown the seed of doubt in my thoughts. Am I being overly harsh? Should I give them one final chance? But then I remember all of the pain and disappointment, and I am reminded of why I made this decision in the beginning. I realize this is a long essay, but I felt it was necessary to provide background for why I'm making this decision. So, Reddit, am I an asshole for refusing to have my brother and parents attend my wedding? Update 1. I'd like to thank everyone for their enormous support on my original article. Your remarks and words have given me courage at this tough time. I wanted to provide an update on the issue, as there have been significant changes in the last several weeks. After more discussion with Ryan, I decided to hold firm on my decision not to invite James or my parents to the wedding. However, Ryan advised that I meet with them in person to explain my reasoning, which could give some closure for all of us. Although I was hesitant, I decided it was worth a shot. We decided to meet in a neutral spot, a quiet cafe in a nearby town. I arrived with Ryan, feeling both anxious and determined. My parents and James were already there, with my mother's eyes red from crying and my father sporting his usual disapproving grimace. James, surprise, appeared more reserved than I expected. As soon as we sat down, my mother broke into a sobbing tirade about family loyalty and how I was pulling everyone apart. My father interfered with remarks about how ungrateful I was behaving. I let them speak while taking deep breaths to remain cool. When they eventually ran out of steam, I politely expressed my stance. I brought up specific examples of how they had harmed me over the years, such as the camera incident and the persistent favoritism. I informed them that, while I cared about them, I didn't think we had a relationship that warranted them attending my wedding. To my surprise, James spoke up in a hushed voice. He revealed that he purposefully broke my camera in college. He admitted that he had always been concerned about my academic achievement and regretted that I was leaving him behind by going to college. He stated he wants to take me down a notch to make himself feel better. The table became silent following this revelation. Our parents appeared astonished, as if they were witnessing our dynamic for the first time. My mother tried to make things better by saying, "Well, that was a long time ago, we should let bygones be bygones." But I wasn't having it. I pointed out that James's admission confirmed my point regarding our family's unhealthy dynamic. My father then attempted a new method. He offered to pay for the entire wedding as long as we included them. This financial trickery effort caught me off guard. I declined, stressing that it was not about money, but about surrounding ourselves with sincere supporters. James looked to be really disturbed about this. He began raving about how I had always thought I was superior than the family, and that I would come to regret pushing them away. It was as if all of his previous remorse had vanished, replaced by the same rage and hatred. At that point, Ryan, who had been silently supportive throughout the conversation, recommended we leave. As we stood up, my mother grabbed my arm and asked, sobbing, if this meant I was cutting them out of my life permanently. I honestly told her that I didn't know, but that I needed time to heal and think things through. In the days since this meeting, my phone has been constantly buzzing with messages from extended family members. James and my parents appear to have been fabricating their own version of events, claiming that I am suffering a mental breakdown and attempting to destroy the family. My aunt even called to suggest that I postpone the wedding until I come to my senses. The steady flood of messages and phone calls has been extremely taxing. I found myself questioning my decision at times, wondering if I was overreacting. But then I remember the years of hurt and rejection, and I realize I'm doing the right thing for myself. Ryan has been my rock throughout this. The way my family handled me at the meeting just strengthened his support for my decision. He recommended we go on a weekend trip to get away from the drama and work on our relationship. We ended up heading to a small beach town a couple hours away. During our trip, we spent time wandering on the beach, trying out various eateries, and simply enjoying each other's company without the cloud of family drama hovering over us. One evening, as we watched the sunset, Ryan told me how proud he was of me for sticking up for myself. He reminded me that we are now forming our own family, one based on mutual respect and love. This getaway was just what I needed to reinforce my decision and focused on the wonderful future that awaits us. We even discussed moving to a new place after the wedding to get a fresh start away from the continual reminder of my family's destructive behavior. When we came home, I made the painful decision to block my family's phone number and social media profiles. It felt severe, but I knew I had to safeguard my peace of mind. As the wedding date approached, we took some practical steps to ensure that everything went as planned. We have hired security for the venue in case any unauthorized guests show up. We've also password protected all of our vendor accounts, ensuring that no one can change our plans. It's unfortunate that we need to take these precautions, but I want to be prepared for everything. As the wedding date approaches, I'm trying to focus on the positives, marrying the love of my life surrounded by people who have become family. Yes, I'm still unhappy about the situation with my biological family, but I'm learning to realize that I can't change them or make them appreciate me. All I can do now is move forward and build the life and family I deserve. Thank you for your continued support. It means more than you realize to have people acknowledge my feelings after years of being gaslighted by my family. I'll post another update after the wedding to let everyone know how things go. Update 2. It's been almost a month since my previous update, and I wanted to share some progress with my family and our wedding arrangements. First, some good news. Ryan and I have finalized the majority of the plans for our wedding, and we are both getting excited. We've decided to host a smaller celebration than we originally anticipated, with only our closest friends and Ryan's family in attendance. This approach makes it feel far more intimate and important. We've selected a lovely garden setting for the ceremony and reception. The florist has created magnificent arrangements with my favorite flowers, and we've planned a menu to suit both of our interests. Ryan and I have been practicing our first dance, which has resulted in a lot of laughs and stepped on toes, but it's been a good way to unwind from all of the family turmoil. Now for some bad news. Despite my stated wishes, my family has continued to interfere with our wedding plans. Last week, my mother showed up unexpectedly at my employment. I was in a meeting when a colleague came to get me, claiming there was a distraught woman in the lobby who insisted on seeing me. When I got to the foyer, I discovered my mother in tears, raising a commotion. She was crying and begged me to reconsider, claiming she had already purchased a wedding gown and couldn't face the prospect of not watching her baby girl walk down the aisle. She had brought photo albums from my childhood, hoping that seeing photographs of happier times might change my viewpoint. I was humiliated and angered that she would ambush me at work in that manner. I told her to leave and that if she performed another stunt like that, I would have to call security. She departed in tears, and I felt uncomfortable and preoccupied for the rest of the day. My supervisor was understanding, but I couldn't get rid of the sensation of humiliation. A few days after this encounter, James sent me a lengthy email. Compared to his earlier angry messages, this one appeared more contemplative. He wrote about how he'd been thinking a lot since we met at the cafe. He admitted that he had been a lousy brother growing up and promised to make amends. James went into depth about how he had always been overshadowed by my accomplishments and had acted out due to his own anxieties. He even offered to pay for the camera he shattered all those years ago, claiming he had researched the model and determined its current value. While I admired the gesture and the obvious self-reflection, I couldn't help but think it was too little, too late. Years of hurt and animosity do not dissipate with a single email, no matter how well intended. I responded, thanking him for his apology but stating that I needed space and that my choice on the wedding was definite. Unfortunately, things took a turn when I discovered James had somehow obtained the contact information for our wedding venue. The venue coordinator called me, sounding confused. She explained that someone pretending to be Ryan had called and attempted to add 3 names to the guest list. Fortunately, the organizer was alert and consulted me before making any adjustments. I was astounded to find that James had gone to such extremes. It felt like a massive violation of my boundaries, and I wondered if his apology email was genuine, or simply another manipulation attempt. This incident confirmed my choice not to invite them. Ryan was enraged when I informed him of James's attempted lie. He advised we look for a restraining order because he was concerned that my relatives would try to disrupt the wedding. We're thinking about our alternatives, but I'm hesitant to take legal action unless absolutely necessary. The prospect of taking legal action against my own family, no matter how justifiable, feels like a significant step. On a more positive side, Ryan's family has been really supportive throughout this. Last weekend, his parents asked me over to supper, and his mother pulled me away for a private conversation. She told me that she already considered me a daughter and was proud of me for advocating for myself. It was touching to feel so embraced and cherished by them, especially given my own family's actions. As the wedding approaches, I'm trying to focus on the positive and not let my family's behavior overshadow this beautiful occasion. Ryan and I have begun premarital counseling, which has been quite beneficial in processing everything that has occurred and improving our communication. We've been talking about our hopes for the future and how we want our relationship to vary from what I had growing up. We've also chosen to plan something unique for our bachelor and bachelorette parties. Instead of large parties, we have scheduled a private cooking class for ourselves and our wedding party. It is nice to develop new traditions that are meaningful to us, rather than conforming to others' expectations. My brother's girlfriend planted drugs in my room and framed me. I was arrested and kicked out by my own mother. I, a 21-year-old male, need to get this off my chest because my life has entirely fallen apart over the last month. My younger brother, Patrick, a 19-year-old male, has always been the golden kid in our family. But what he did to me was beyond what I could have anticipated. Let us first examine our family dynamics. Our parents split when I was 12 and Patrick was 10. Our father relocated across the nation for work, so we only see him on holidays. Our mother, Rosa, 45, works 2 jobs to support us. She works during the day as a nurse at the local hospital and at night as an office cleaner. She is usually fatigued, so Patrick and I had to rely on each other growing up. Our mother has always been really strict with both of us in terms of academic performance. She came here from Colombia when she was young and never finished college since she had me so early. She is always teaching us that education is the only way to make something of ourselves. Patrick has always been a naturally bright student who excels in her role. I had to work twice as hard to achieve good grades. Even then, I usually got B's and C's. As a result, Patrick became Mom's clear favorite. She would brag about him to her friends, display his report cards on the refrigerator, and always use him as an example when lecturing me on my grades. It ached. But I understood. Patrick was actually clever, and his mother was proud. I assumed that was just the way things were. Despite this preference, Patrick and I were actually quite close. We shared a room until I was 18. And we had an underlying agreement that we were a team against the world. When Mom was working late, we'd order pizza and stay up late playing video games. When she was concerned about money, we would both contribute from our part-time jobs without her asking. Patrick would assist me with my homework, and I would drive him around because he didn't have a license yet. The situation started approximately 6 months ago, when Patrick began seeing Linda, an 18-year-old girl from his high school. She's one of those popular attractive girls who is accustomed to receiving attention. Patrick was utterly smitten with her from the beginning. He'd spend hours on the phone with her, skip our regular hangouts, and basically base his entire schedule on her availability. I did not mind at first. Patrick had never had a significant girlfriend before, so I assumed he was just going through the honeymoon phase. But Linda started visiting our house more frequently, and I began to notice some things about her that disturbed me. She had a habit of talking down to those she thought were beneath her. She'd make passing remarks about how small our house was, or how weary Mom always looked. She would roll her eyes when her mother tried to converse with her in broken English. Patrick never seemed to notice these details, or perhaps he decided to overlook them. The true problem occurred when Linda started spending time at our house when Patrick was at work. He worked at the local grocery shop 3 afternoons a week, and she would occasionally pop up while just I was home. She used to wait in Patrick's room, but she eventually started hanging out with me in the living room. Linda is gorgeous, and she was well aware of this. She wore low-cut blouses and short shorts and sat very close to me on the couch while we watched TV. She would laugh at everything I said, even when I wasn't attempting to be amusing. She'd stroke my arm while she spoke to me and grumble about Patrick's constant work or school commitments. I was aware of what was happening, but I attempted to maintain my distance. Patrick was my brother, and I wasn't about to jeopardize that for any female, no matter how lovely she was. But Linda persisted. She started texting me to see whether I was home before she came over. She would bring me food from the areas she visited with Patrick. She'd asked me for advice on their relationship, which seemed like a trap. The breaking point happened roughly 2 months ago. Patrick was working a double shift at the store, and Linda arrived at our home at 8 p.m. Mom was working a night job, so it was just me and her. She mentioned that she was bored and wanted to hang out. We ended up watching a movie, and she kept moving closer to me on the couch. Near the end of the film, she asked me directly if I considered her beautiful. I told her she was beautiful, but she was my brother's girlfriend, and I was not interested in going down that road. She laughed and said Patrick did not need to know everything. She then kissed me. I pulled her away instantly and urged her to leave. She became agitated and claimed I was rejecting her because I thought I was too good for her. I said it had nothing to do with that. I wasn't going to betray my brother. She departed angrily, and I hoped that was the end of the matter. But Linda began acting strangely around me after that. When she came over with Patrick, she barely noticed me. She'd mutter things to Patrick, which made him look at me oddly. She began posting cryptic messages on social media about people not being who they appear, and how some people cannot be trusted. Patrick started treating me differently too. He stopped inviting me to hang out. When I tried to converse to him, he just gave me short answers. When I asked him what was wrong, he didn't say anything, but I could tell he was upset. 3 weeks ago, everything detonated. I was at my part-time work at the auto shop when my phone began to ring with calls and texts. My mother was anxiously contacting me and Patrick had sent me several nasty texts. Mom texted me that I needed to get home immediately since the cops were at our house. I went home as quickly as possible, and when I came into our house, there were 2 police cars parked outside. My mother was crying on the front porch and Patrick stood next to her, arms crossed. The officers were walking out of our house with many plastic bags. One of the officers approached me and asked for my identification. He informed me that they had gotten an anonymous tip that I was selling drugs from our home, and that they had discovered marijuana and prescription pills in my bedroom. I was extremely shocked. I told them I had no idea how those narcotics got there, but they insisted on taking me in for interrogation. At the police station, they informed me that someone had called in a tip alleging that they had purchased drugs from me several times. The caller gave specifics about our house layout and that I kept my stockpile in a shoebox under my bed. When they checked the specific spot, they discovered a bag of marijuana and approximately 20 tablets, which turned out to be stolen prescription medications. I kept saying that I'd never seen those medicines before in my life. I don't even smoke marijuana. I've always been concerned that it might jeopardize my ability to keep my job at the auto shop. But the proof was right where the anonymous caller claimed it would be. The worst part was that my mother and Patrick came to pick me up after I was freed on bond. Mom would not look at me. Patrick sat in the back car, staring out the window the entire way home. When we went to the house, Mom told me I had 24 hours to find another somewhere to live. I tried to explain to both of them that I was innocent, but Mom said the narcotics were discovered in my room, which was sufficient for her. Patrick only shook his head and expressed his disappointment in me for lying about it. He stated Linda had warned him that I had been acting strangely lately and that she feared I was doing drugs. That's when something clicked. Linda had been in our home alone several times. She knew the arrangement. She had access to my room and was now easily commenting on my odd conduct. I confronted Patrick about Linda, and he became enraged. He claimed I was attempting to blame his girlfriend for my own mistakes. He said Linda had been nothing but kind to me, and that I was ungrateful. Mom agreed with him, saying I was manipulative by attempting to shift blame to an innocent girl. I packed my belongings and left that night. I've been staying at my friend Gavin's apartment and sleeping on his couch. The criminal accusations remain unresolved, and I had to utilize my money to hire a lawyer. My mother hasn't returned my calls, and Patrick has blocked me on all social media. It pains me that I can't prove Linda planted the medicines. I can't verify she made the anonymous call. I only had my suspicions and the fact that she had access to my room. But Patrick is so consumed by his affections for her that he refuses to even contemplate the prospect. I learned from Gavin, who still speaks with Patrick on occasion, that Linda has moved on to console Patrick about having such a disappointing brother. She's been staying at our house more frequently, assisting Mom with domestic duties, and generally presenting herself as the ideal girlfriend who is supporting the family during this tough time. Meanwhile, my life is utterly shattered. I might go to jail. I have lost my family. My reputation in our small community has been shattered. And the guy I believe is to blame for everything is being honored as if he were a saint. I do not know what to do. Part of me wants to keep battling to establish my innocence, but another part of me believes I should give up and start over somewhere else. Have you ever been in a situation where someone close to you was exploited by a toxic individual? How can you prove something if you don't have any evidence? Update 1. I can't believe I'm back with an update, but something happened to change everything. For those who haven't read my initial story, Linda, my brother Patrick's girlfriend, basically destroyed my life by hiding narcotics in my room and called the police with an anonymous tip. I've been staying on my friend Gavin's couch since my mother kicked me out. The last 3 weeks have been horrible. My lawyer stated the case against me is solid because the pills were discovered exactly where the anonymous caller predicted they would be. The prosecutor has offered me a plea agreement. Admit guilt and receive probation instead of probable jail time. My lawyer recommended me to accept it, but I refused because I am innocent. Gavin has been kind about allowing me to stay with him, but I could tell it was straining his relationship with his girlfriend, Jenna. They'd have these whispered discussions in the kitchen that would end when I walked in. Jenna ultimately told me last week that I could stay for no more than 2 weeks since they needed their space back. I understood. But that meant I was running out of options quickly. I began looking for apartments that I could afford with my auto shop wages, but most places required the first month, last month, and a security deposit up front. With my legal bills, I barely had enough to cover 1 month's rent, let alone 3. I actually considered packing my car and driving to another state to start fresh. However, something unexpected occurred. Last Tuesday, I was working late at the car business when my phone called. I didn't recognize the number, yet something compelled me to answer it. Linda's voice came through on the other end. She sounded different, unsteady and frightened. She asked if we could meet somewhere and speak. I told her I had nothing to say to her, especially after she convinced my brother and mother that I was a drug dealer. She said she needed to tell me something crucial about what had happened. My first instinct was to hang up, but curiosity got the best of me. I promised to meet her in a 24-hour diner across town where no one would recognize us. She said she will be there in an hour. When I arrived at the diner, Linda was already seated in a rear booth with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. She looked awful. Her hair was a disaster. She had black circles under her eyes and her hands were trembling. This was not the confident, manipulative girl I recall. She began talking before I even sat down. She explained that Patrick had proposed to her the night before. He didn't just propose. He devised an elaborate plan to propose at graduation in front of both families. He had spent all of his savings on a ring, and was discussing moving in together after high school. Linda claimed she panicked when he proposed. She realized she didn't want to marry Patrick and live in our small town. She had only been dating him because he was intelligent, and she thought it made her appear attractive. But the thought of being bound to him indefinitely scared her. She then began crying and stated that she needed to tell me the truth about what had transpired. She admits to planting the narcotics in my room. She claimed she stole them from her mother's medication cabinet and acquired the marijuana from a student at school. She placed the anonymous call to the police because she wanted me out of the situation. I questioned her why she would go to such extremes to get rid of me. She claimed it wasn't actually about me at all. She understood that if Patrick's family came apart, he'd have to prioritize taking care of his mother before planning their future together. She reasoned that if I was arrested and booted out, it would cause enough family upheaval to keep Patrick from considering marriage. She also admitted lying to Patrick about my coming on to her. She claimed she told him I had tried to kiss her and that I was constantly making indecent comments when he was not present. She wanted him to distrust me so that when the drug incident occurred, he would not question it. I sat there in full disbelief as I heard this revelation. This girl had ruined my life as part of a grand scheme to avoid marrying my brother. I inquired why she was telling me this now. She claimed Patrick had been talking about the wedding nonstop since he proposed, and the guilt was eating her alive. She also stated that her mother had spotted the missing pills and threatened to contact the police if Linda did not admit to taking them. She was afraid she'd get arrested herself. I asked her whether she was willing to tell the truth to Patrick and my mother. She said she would, but she expected something in exchange. She wanted me to assist convince Patrick not to hate her when the truth was revealed. She said she genuinely cared about him and didn't want him to believe she was a monster. I almost laughed at her plea. She had literally tried to put me in prison, ruined my connection with my family, and cost me thousands of dollars in legal bills. And now she wants me to help her deal with her breakup with my brother. But then I realized, this was my chance to reclaim my life. I promised her I'd think about helping her work things out with Patrick. But first, she had to go to the police and admit to planting the pills. I also wanted her to tell my mother and Patrick the truth in person, not over the phone. She offered to meet me at the police station the next day. I didn't trust her, so I insisted on picking her up myself to ensure she showed up. The following morning, I traveled to Linda's residence. She was waiting outside with a small luggage, and she appeared to have not slept all night. On the way to the police station, she kept asking me what I expected Patrick to do when he found out. I told her honestly that he would probably never forgive her, but that was the result of her actions. Linda went to the police station and wanted to speak with the investigator who had handled my case. She confessed to planting the narcotics and filing a fraudulent report. The detective asked her to write and sign a thorough statement. He said the charges against me will be dropped within a few days. Linda asked if we might meet with my mother and Patrick after we left the police station. I contacted my mother and informed her that I was coming over with Linda and that she needed to hear something important. Mom seemed perplexed, but decided to let us come over. When we arrived at my house, Patrick and Mom were both sitting at the kitchen table waiting for us. Patrick seemed angry to see me, and Mom appeared fatigued. Linda sat across from them and explained everything. The drugs, the anonymous call, and the lies about my sexual advances on her. All of it. Patrick's face went through around 5 different emotions as Linda spoke. First came confusion, then amazement, rage, hurt, and ultimately a blank expression as if he was shutting down. Mom merely kept shaking her head and saying, "I can't believe it." Patrick asked Linda why she would do such a terrible thing to his family once she had finished talking. She tried to explain that she felt stuck and didn't want to marry, but he cut her off. He told her to go and not contact him again. After Linda had departed, Mom hugged me and apologized for not believing me. She claimed she felt bad about kicking me out and that I could move back home immediately. Patrick apologized too, but I could tell he was more upset with himself for being duped than sorry for doubting me. I returned home that weekend. The accusations were officially dismissed, and my lawyer indicated that I might be able to collect part of my legal bills from Linda's family. Patrick had definitely broken up with Linda, and he buried himself in his schoolwork to avoid dealing with his emotions. But, here's the deal. Even if the truth has been revealed and my name has been cleared, things are not back to normal. Patrick seldom speaks to me. He seems cordial but aloof, as if he is embarrassed by the entire event. Mom tries to pretend as if everything is fine, but there is an uneasiness between us that was not present before. I believe Patrick feels dumb for being duped by Linda, and seeing me reminds him of how terribly he misread the situation. I also believe he is processing the idea that his girlfriend was willing to destroy his family in order to avoid marrying him, which must have been quite damaging to his self-esteem. Linda has obviously left town. Patrick learned from someone at school that she had moved in with relatives in another state. I hope I never see her again, but a part of me wonders whether she may try to cause more difficulties in the future. For the time being, all I'm focusing on is rebuilding my life and ties with family. It will take time, but at least the truth is now out there. Update 2. Another update because the matter has somehow become much more convoluted. Linda, my brother's ex-girlfriend, falsely accused me of drug peddling. I was arrested. My family has disowned me. She eventually admitted the truth. I assumed that was the end of it, but I was mistaken. Things were slowly returning to normal at home. Patrick was still acting strangely around me, but Mom and I were repairing our connection. After being home for approximately a month, something happened that changed everything again. On a Saturday morning I was working at the auto shop when an elderly woman came in and specifically asked for me. She introduced herself as Olivia, Linda's mother. I'd never met her before, but I knew her from the images Linda had given us. Olivia seemed quite unhappy and requested if we could speak privately. My supervisor allowed me to take a break and we sat in her car outside the business. She informed me that Linda had been lying about far more than simply the pills. Olivia claims Linda had been stealing from her for months before the event with me occurred. Olivia's purse money, prescriptions, and even some of her jewelry had gone missing. Olivia suspected Linda but couldn't prove it until Linda admitted to the police that she had framed me. However, that wasn't the worst part. Olivia claimed that once Linda moved up with her relatives in Nevada, she began phoning Olivia wanting money. Linda claimed she was pregnant with Patrick's baby and required financial assistance. Olivia sent her $2,000 before becoming suspicious and contacting the relatives Linda was allegedly residing with. Linda had never been pregnant. She had been spending the money on parties with new acquaintances in Las Vegas. When Olivia confronted her about it, Linda admitted the pregnancy was bogus but claimed she deserved the money as restitution for having to leave her community due to the mess I had caused. Olivia called because she thought I should know Linda was continuing lying about our family and attempting to obtain money by using Patrick's name. She also wanted to tell me that Linda had been posting messages on social media about how she was the true victim in our scenario. I checked Linda's social media profiles that night, and Olivia was correct. Linda had rewritten the entire narrative online. According to her writings, I had been bothering her for months, making unwelcome advances and threatening her when she turned me down. She stated she only lied to the police because she was afraid of what I would do to her. She presented herself as a valiant victim who had finally escaped an oppressive situation. The post received dozens of comments from people I didn't know, calling me various names and suggesting I should be imprisoned. Linda also shared images of herself looking sad and vulnerable, with words about starting afresh after overcoming tragedy. I screenshotted everything and showed it to Patrick. He was furious when he realized what Linda had posted. He hadn't used social media since their breakup, so he had no idea she was still spreading lies about our family. Patrick decided to phone Linda and tell her about the bogus pregnancy narrative and social media posts. I was present when he made the call, and he turned it on speaker so that I could hear. Linda answered the first ring, and her voice became beautiful and heartfelt when she learned it was Patrick. She informed him she had been missing him tremendously and regretted leaving town. She expressed a desire to return and resolve their differences. Patrick interrupted her and asked about the pregnancy claim and the money she had taken from her mother. Linda became defensive, claiming Olivia was lying because she was furious about Linda moving out. She insisted the pregnancy was real, but she miscarried soon after moving to Nevada. Then Patrick questioned her about the social media posts. Linda's tone abruptly shifted. She became hostile and claimed she had every right to explain her side of the tale. She claimed I had made her feel unsafe, and she was simply alerting other girls about my actions. Patrick informed her she was delusional, and that he did not want to hear from her again. Linda began crying and begged him not to hang up. She promised to stop blogging about me if he would talk to her about getting back together. Patrick informed her that she was unwell and hung up, but the harm had already been done. Linda's social media posts were shared by people in our town, and the story spread. I began receiving strange looks at work and throughout town from folks who believed Linda's version of events. My employer at the car shop summoned me to his office the following week. He stated some customers had inquired about me, and he was concerned about the shop's reputation. He did not fire me, but he made it obvious that if the drama continued to disrupt his business, he would have to let me go. That's when I knew I couldn't keep ignoring Linda's falsehoods. I had remained silent when she first confessed because I believed the truth would be sufficient, but she was still out there attempting to harm my reputation. I gathered all of my proof, including screenshots of her tweets, the police report in which she confessed, Olivia's testimony regarding the stolen money and fake pregnancy, and I made my own social media reaction describing what truly happened. I did not insult Linda personally or call her names, I simply presented the facts with documentation to back them up. I said that she admitted to placing narcotics in my room, lied to the police, and was now spreading false information online. The response was quick. People who knew me and my family began to share my post and defend me in the comments. Linda's school friends came up with their own stories of how she lied or manipulated circumstances to gain attention. Linda, however, took things to the next level. She created a new social media account and began messaging my friends and coworkers directly, sending them bogus images of text conversations in which I allegedly threatened her. The screenshots were clearly doctored. They had uneven formatting, and several of the messages used lingo that I never use. Linda's false screenshot was emailed to my mother's office. A coworker showed it to Mom, who brought it home and asked me about it. According to the phony message, I threatened Linda with violence if she returned to town. I demonstrated to Mom how the screenshot was a forgery by comparing it to real text chats on my phone. The fonts were different, and the message timestamps did not correspond with when Linda and I had actually texted. Mom believed me, but she was concerned about how far Linda was ready to go with her falsehoods. Patrick suggested we talk to a lawyer regarding Linda's harassment accusations. He felt guilty that his ex-girlfriend was still attempting to harm our family, even after the truth was revealed. Last week we spoke with a lawyer who specializes in internet harassment claims. She analyzed all of the data, and concluded that we had a strong case against Linda for defamation and cyberstalking. She further stated that Olivia may file charges for theft and fraud in connection with the phony pregnancy money. Linda received a cease and desist letter from the lawyer, requesting that she stop posting false material about me and remove all existing posts. Linda has yet to answer, although her social media profiles were made private shortly after she would have received the message. I'm hoping that this is the end of Linda's crusade against me, but I'm not holding my breath. She appears determined to present herself as the victim, regardless of the evidence to the contrary. The good news is that Patrick and I can finally talk regularly again. Working together to deal with Linda's harassment has helped us rebuild our relationship. He apologized for ever doubting me and said he felt silly for being duped by someone so manipulative. Mom has been fantastic during all of this. She feels bad about how she treated me when I was first arrested, and she has been going out of her way to make amends. She also offered to cover my legal bills in the harassment case. I'm simply tired of dealing with Linda's drama. All I want is for her to leave me and my family alone so that we can get on with our lives, but it seems like every time I think it's finished, she finds another way to cause trouble. Update 3. This is my final update because I believe the situation has reached a resolution. Linda, my brother's ex-girlfriend, falsely accused me of drug peddling. I got arrested. My family has disowned me. She eventually confessed. And then she kept bothering me online with false stories. We retained a lawyer and gave her a cease and desist letter. The cease and desist letter was effective, but not in the way we planned. Instead of just ceasing her pestering, Linda decided to push matters one last time before vanishing totally from our life. Olivia, Linda's mother, called me back about 2 weeks after the lawyer submitted the letter. She sounded worried, saying Linda had returned to our town without informing anyone. Olivia discovered out when Linda's relatives in Nevada contacted looking for her. She had allegedly stolen money and items from them before departing. Olivia was concerned about Linda's potential actions, as she appeared to be becoming increasingly desperate and reckless. She warned me to be cautious and said she was heading to our town to attempt to locate Linda and bring her home. That day, Patrick called me at work. He seemed shaken and informed me Linda had popped up on his college campus. She had managed to figure out his class schedule and was waiting for him outside his chemistry lecture. When he attempted to ignore her and go away, she began ranting at him in front of the other pupils. Linda was complaining to Patrick about how I had turned everyone against her and ruined her life. She blamed me for her family cutting her off, forcing her to leave town, and preventing her from returning. She insisted that Patrick chose between supporting her and supporting me. Patrick said he would never select her after what she had done to her family. Linda took out her phone and began recording, claiming loudly that Patrick was harassing her and that she felt unsafe. Other students gathered around to see what was going on. Linda was eventually escorted off campus by security. They told Patrick that he could make a report if he wanted, but he declined because all he wanted was for her to leave him alone. But Linda wasn't finished. That evening she shared the video she had taken on social media, claiming Patrick was part of a plan with me to silence her. The video was modified to remove the context for what she was ranting about. So it just showed Patrick appearing irritated and begging her to leave him alone. This was Linda's biggest error yet. Several kids who observed the actual fight read the post and left comments detailing what transpired. They depicted Linda as the aggressor, ranting about how I had ruined her life. One student even had their own video of the incident from a different perspective, demonstrating Linda's strange conduct. When this video was shared, it entirely contradicted Linda's story and made her appear unstable. That night, Olivia discovered Linda in a small motel on the outskirts of town. Linda had been using bogus social media accounts to watch what was said about her, and she was outraged that her plan to make Patrick appear bad had failed. Olivia persuaded Linda to meet with our lawyer to discuss resolving the matter without taking further legal action. I was suspicious, but the lawyer thought it was worth investigating because Linda was definitely spiraling and might agree to terms that would stop this forever. The meeting was held a few days later in the lawyer's office. Linda looked dreadful. She had lost weight, her hair was greasy, and she was always fidgeting with her hands. Olivia sat next to her and did the majority of the talking at first. Our lawyer presented Linda with 2 possibilities. She could agree to sign a legally enforceable agreement, agreeing to never contact me, Patrick, or anybody in our family again, as well as to delete all false posts about me on social media. In exchange, we agreed not to seek criminal charges for her recent harassment. If she refused, we would file charges for cyberstalking, defamation, and harassment, while Olivia would seek charges for theft and fraud relating to the phony pregnancy money. Linda originally claimed that she was the true victim, and that we were bullying her. But when the lawyer showed her all of the evidence we had gathered, including the false screenshots, conflicting social media posts, and witness testimonies from Patrick campus incident, she suddenly realized how much danger she was in. Olivia cried for most of the meeting. She kept apologizing to us, claiming she didn't know how to help her kid anymore. She claimed Linda had been engaging in manipulative conduct since she was a teenager, but it had gotten considerably worse in the last year. After approximately an hour of conversation, Linda agreed to sign the contract. She would delete all of my social media posts, stop using fake identities to track or contact anyone in our family, and leave town forever. She also had to agree to receive mental health treatment, which Olivia insisted on. Linda was required by the lawyer to write and sign a public apology post, which she had to leave on her social media platforms for 30 days before deleting them. The apology acknowledged that she had lied about me and that all of her earlier posts were fake. Linda was plainly ashamed by having to post an apology, yet she did so. The message drew a lot of interest from people in our town who were following the situation. Many people left comments expressing their support for me and my family. Olivia returned Linda to Nevada the same day. Olivia gave me her phone number and told me to call her if Linda contacted us again. She also volunteered to pay for some of my legal fees, which was thoughtful of her. That was 2 months ago, and I have not heard from Linda since. Her social media accounts have been erased, and Patrick claims none of his pals have seen or heard from her. I occasionally check to see whether she has formed new accounts to post about me, but so far everything has been silent. My life has mostly gone back to normal. I'm still working at the car business, and my boss seems relieved that the turmoil has ended. My relationship with Patrick is the best it's been in years. Going through this experience together drew us closer. Mom has also been great. She still feels horrible about how she treated me when I was first arrested, but we've moved on. This event taught her a lesson about online abuse, and she is now more skeptical of everything she sees on social media. The only long-term effect is that I'm much more cautious about who I trust. Linda taught me that some people are willing to wreck innocent people's lives for just selfish reasons. I'm not bitter about it, but I'm more conscious of warning signs in people's conduct. I've also realized that sometimes the truth isn't enough. Even after Linda admitted to framing me, she continued to influence others online with false stories. It took legal action and enough evidence to eventually stop her. Patrick is currently dating a new girl named Lily, who appears to be truly kind and drama-free. He's taking it much slower this time and is being more cautious in introducing her to the family. I believe his experience with Linda taught him to look for character and integrity rather than being impressed by someone's appearance or popularity. Linda, on the other hand, I hope she receives the assistance she requires and ceases to cause harm. But I also want to never have to deal with her again. Some individuals are simply poisonous, and the best thing you can do is remove them from your life and keep them away. I'm thankful that my family stayed together in the end and that the truth came out. It was a horrific experience, but it might have been much worse if Linda had been more cautious about covering her tracks, or if my family had refused to listen when the evidence became evident. This entire incident taught me that while family relationships can be fragile, they can also be stronger than you realize if everyone is prepared to fight for them. Patrick and I went through hell, but we emerged stronger on the other side. My daughter, lied once, I believed her and kicked my son out. 2 years later, she needs his kidney, but he refuses to save her. I never imagined I'd write something like this, or that I'd be sitting here alone, my hands shaking, revisiting every decision I made that night, every word I screamed, and every quiet I chose to maintain. I was 38, and my spouse was 39. We had 2 children, Adrian, 18, and Isabella, 9. Despite the significant age disparity, I always assumed they loved each other, looked after each other, and were close siblings. Adrian was quiet and reserved. He enjoyed reading, staying in his room, and studying. Yet he was a good lad. He never responded to me, never caused difficulty, and never gave me any reason to distrust him. Isabella was the complete opposite, cheerful, active, a whirlwind, constantly moving and talking. And because I worked part-time and my husband spent long hours away, Adrian frequently looked after her. He would return home from college and be with her until I arrived. There were no indicators. Until that night, it was a family meal. We'd prepared spaghetti. My sister-in-law provided the wine. My nephews were playing in the living room. My husband, my children and I were all at the table, along with a couple of cousins. Nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. And then Isabella spoke it plainly, without drama or tears, like if the neighbor's dog had bitten her. Adrian touched me down there, she said simply and coldly, as if she didn't realize the gravity of the situation. Everything ceased. My cousin quit speaking. My spouse stared at me. I gazed at my kid. "What did you say, my love?" I asked softly, trying not to shake. My brother touched my private parts twice. I coughed on my own breath. Nobody said anything for a few seconds. Then my hubby got up. His chair tipped backward. I followed him as if my legs were moving themselves. I called Adrian. He didn't respond. I called again. This time he picked up. "What's wrong, Mom? Come home now." "What happened?" "Just come home." He got off the line. It took him 20 minutes to arrive. He stepped in with his knapsack on his shoulder, perplexed. "What happened?" Before he could respond, my husband pushed him hard against the wall. "Did you touch her? Did you touch your sister?" "What? What are you talking about?" Adrian couldn't grasp. I swear it. I could see it on his face. He was pale, terrified, stammering and shaking his head. No, of course not. I would never do that. I don't know why she's saying that. But my husband wouldn't let him go on. He punched him in the face. Adrian collapsed to the floor, bleeding from his nose, and looked up at us with a mixture of terror, amazement, and something more. Something I'd never seen before in him. Betrayal. I did nothing. I simply gazed at him. I did not hug him. I did not defend him. I did not believe him. My husband went to his room and got his backpack, clothes, and paperwork. He went outside, flung everything on the doorstep and screamed, "You're dead to us, never come back." Adrian was crying, practically begging. He said he didn't comprehend and it wasn't true. "Please don't kick me out." And I simply stood there clutching Isabella. No word, not a single one. We excluded him from everything. We changed the locks and canceled his college support. He never returned to that house or made another call. He ceased to exist for us. We spent weeks convincing ourselves that we had done the right thing by sheltering our baby. We questioned her multiple times if there was anything more that had happened. She only said no twice. And we never took her to a psychologist because we thought our love was enough and we blindly believed her. For a while, it appeared that peace was returning. Isabella played, smiled, and slept better. I started sleeping too, until the dreams started. I would see Adrian on the floor, his face bleeding, his eyes wide, gazing at me, his mother, and asking, why? Because I didn't inquire, I didn't doubt, I simply acted. That was the night I completely destroyed him. Months have passed since we kicked Adrian out. Months of silence, denial, and thinking we'd done the right thing. Isabella smiled again, playing. She even mentioned that she felt safer today. I viewed that as a sign that we had acted appropriately. My husband never brought up Adrian's name again. Whether I indicated that I missed him or inquired whether we knew anything about him, his expression would freeze me from the inside. Adrian didn't exist for him anymore. Until that Saturday, Isabella was on her way to art class. An elder cousin was driving her. It was a calm afternoon. I was folding laundry when the phone rang. I don't recall much of the call. Only a few words remain in my ear. Accident, head-on collision, ambulance, 1 person killed. The girl is in critical condition. My husband followed me as I hurried to the hospital. We arrived as she was being brought to the ER. There was blood, there were shrieks. Doctors were scurrying everywhere. I saw her pale, unconscious little face covered in tubes. For a little moment, the world fell silent again. My niece was killed in the impact. Isabella lived, but only barely. The diagnosis was straightforward: serious damage to her left kidney, several internal hemorrhages, and contusions. She would require immediate surgery, most likely a transplant. The physicians advised us that time was of the essence and that we should be prepared for the worst. We spent days in the ICU. I never left her side, sleeping on a chair and refusing to eat. I simply stared at the machines that kept her alive. My husband became a statue. He didn't speak or cry. He was simply there. One night Isabella opened her eyes. She was weak. She couldn't speak clearly, but she recognized me. She gave me a small grin and asked, "Mom, do you think there is a heaven?" My throat tightened. "Yes, my love, of course there is." "And do you think bad people can go there if they're sorry?" "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" She took a break. Her gaze grew far away. "Because I did something very bad. Something exceedingly awful." I felt my stomach drop. "A few months ago I lied to you. I lied about Adrian." I didn't speak. "What? What did you lie about?" "I made it up, Mom. The part about him touching me. It wasn't true. I was just angry because he wouldn't let me use his tablet. I wanted to punish him. I thought if I said something I don't know. I didn't think all of that would happen. Then I became afraid and didn't know how to convey the truth." Her eyes flooded with tears. Mine had already overflowed. "I killed my brother," she replied, sobbing. "And now I'm going to die too." I clutched her, as if I might draw her soul into mine. "Don't say that. You're not going to die. Forgive you. I'm right here with you." But inside, a fracture was tearing me apart. Not for her, but for him. Adrian. For his expression on the floor and his quiet. That night I returned home. I dragged myself like a dying beast. I told my hubby everything. He was calm. He didn't say anything for several minutes. Finally, without looking at me, he murmured, "We're not going to judge her. What's done is done," and walked away. His apathy hurt me more than his fist that night, but I couldn't take the stillness any longer. In the early hours of the morning, I looked for Adrian. His phone number was disconnected. I found him after searching social media platforms. A profile image without a face indicates a semi-abandoned account. I emailed him, "Hi, it's me. Please just read this." He did not respond. I waited 1 day. 2. On the 3rd day, I sent an additional message. Long and painful. I informed him about the accident, Isabella, and the confession. I told him I wasn't expecting him to forgive me. I just wanted him to know Mom wanted to see him, that she didn't have much time, and that we weren't asking for anything else. Hours later, a response. "You all hurt me too much. I don't know if I can forgive, but if she's as bad as you say, I'll go one last time." My hands trembled as I texted him the hospital location. I heard nothing else for 3 days. I was in the hallway when I noticed him. Adrian is leaner, has dark circles under his eyes, and wears basic clothing. He walked as if he were carrying the weight of the world upon his shoulders. My heart desired to run to him. My body did not move. I watched him enter the room. She spotted him. He stared at her, and time stood still. Isabella burst out in tears. "I'm sorry. Please, I ruined you." Adrian listened quietly. "I can't forgive you completely," he finally replied, "but a part of me already has." He grasped her hand, spoke to her for a few minutes, and then went. He did not greet or glance at me. He only left one sentence before going away. "If there's a funeral, I'll be there. But don't expect anything else." He didn't say anything else after that. Do not anticipate anything else. Adrian vanished again. No message, no reaction, only the echo of his voice in that room, in Isabella's cries, repeating her apology again and over, as if asking for forgiveness was sufficient. But I couldn't sleep now that I knew. I knew time was running out, and the only person who could save my daughter was the same one I had assisted in destroying. A week after his visit, the doctor confirmed it. "She's going to need a transplant soon." My spouse and I had compatibility tests. We weren't compatible, neither of us. The risk of rejection was exceedingly high. The doctor was direct. "A biological brother is the best option. If he's a match, the chances are much higher." I'd already known. I'd seen it in the medical records. They have the same blood type. O positive. Even though I knew I had no right, I looked for him again. I wrote to him from a number he didn't recognize. I just said, "It's important. Please, we need to talk." To my amazement, he consented. We met in a small remote coffee shop. He was on time. He strolled in alone without looking at anyone. He was wearing the same modest clothes and carrying a rucksack on his shoulder. However, his eyes were different. They were no longer the eyes of a hurt youngster, but of someone who had learnt to accept the emptiness. He sat across from us. My hubby was beside me. Nobody talked for several seconds. He interrupted the stillness. "What do you want?" I gulped hard. My voice quivered. "Adrian, we checked the test. There's a high chance you're a match for Isabella. The doctor says if you get tested, you could save her." He wasn't responding. He expressed no rage or astonishment, only fatigue. "You're asking me to donate to my sister?" "Yes, I told you." My husband intervened. "We know this doesn't erase the past, but it could be the first step to fixing things. To becoming a family again?" Adrian raised his eyebrows. He then gazed at us with surgical coldness. "Becoming a family again?" I asked, choking back tears. "We're not asking you to forgive us, just to help her. She's dying." Then he smiled. However, it was not a cheerful smile. It was a sad, sardonic, and perplexing smirk. "And you think this fixes everything?" My spouse asked, winking. "It's not for us. It's for her." Her? The same one who said I touched her? The one who watched me sleep on the street and didn't lift a finger? The one who only said she was sorry when she realized she might die? I tried to interrupt. "Adrian, please. Do you know how many times I thought about dying?" he asked. "How many nights I slept clutching my backpack? How many times I didn't eat for 2 days because I didn't have a single coin?" He looked at us but didn't notice us. He was speaking to his recollections. "I was about to throw myself off a bridge, not once but 3 times. And you know why I didn't? Because I told myself, if I survive this, then I'm going to live my way without owing anything to anyone." He took his place. And now you come to ask me to cut myself in two, to give a part of myself to save you. My husband stood up as well, this time with his fists tightened. Your sister is dying. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Adrian asked, his expression mixed with wrath and pity. You know what it means to me? That now it turns out I'm worth something. That now you need me. That now you want to listen to me. I was shaking with joy. Just think about it, please. If not for her, then for yourself. So you can get closure on this. He was grumbling. I've already got closure. I received it the night I slept on the street with a bloodied face while you celebrated Christmas without me. He then left. He did not shout, cry, or disrespect us. He just departed. That was the last time I saw him. I did not sleep that night. My husband paced the living room like a caged lion, muttering words like, ungrateful, selfish. What kind of brother does that? I heard him, but I didn't disagree because one phrase kept replaying in my head. She is dying, and he can save her. I felt useless, empty, and increasingly desperate. So I did the unthinkable. I opened Facebook. I shared a photo of Isabella in the hospital. Tubes, dark circles, her little face sleepy, delicate on the verge of death. I wrote a lengthy, honest, yet twisted text. I informed them that we needed a donor, that her brother was a match, that we had already apologized, that the girl had sought forgiveness, and that he was the only thing missing. I tagged him, using his full name, and concluded with a condemnatory sentence. What kind of monster refuses to save his sister when he has the power to do so? First there was silence. Then the post blew up. Dozens of reactions, hundreds of comments, initially from acquaintances, then relatives, and finally from complete strangers. Everyone held an opinion. Everyone pointed fingers. Everyone judged. Seriously, he's going to let a little girl die? A kidney, it's one kidney, you can live with one. After everything she suffered, it's the least he could do. What kind of human trash? A life for a life. It makes up for the damage. Some people went even further. A monster disguised as a victim. Anyone with a heart would donate without thinking. Maybe he did what the girl said, and that's why he doesn't want to help. That one hurt more than I expected because, despite knowing Adrian was innocent, I had made him the target again. I had unleashed a digital mob, but in my mind, I kept thinking the same thing. If he feels forced, he might say yes. Several hours passed. I reloaded the post every 5 minutes, waited, and checked his profile. Nothing. Until about 4 hours later he responded. Instead of a remark or a private message, send a video. He shared a roughly 5-minute video on his profile, and it received hundreds of reactions in less than an hour. It began with him sitting on a bench, an empty park in the background, plain clothes, untidy hair, and deep dark circles, yet with an expression I couldn't recognize. He started. Hello, my name is Adrian. Many of you know me because of what my mother posted today. Some of you knew me before, others only from what you've read. I want to tell you something I never had the chance to say. He paused. Took a long breath. 2 years ago, my sister accused me of touching her in front of my entire family, and without asking me or listening to me, they beat me, threw me out, and took everything from me. I was 18 years old at the time, and my world collapsed. I slept on the street, went hungry, lost my scholarship, had no one to call, slept in libraries, hid in public restrooms to wash myself, and considered suicide several times. He then presented a recording from his phone. It was a talk with Isabella in the hospital. Her crying, confessing, pleading for his pardon, claiming she made it all up, that she had wrecked him, and that she did not deserve his forgiveness. Then he looked back at the camera. I saved this recording not for revenge, but because I knew that one day someone would try to turn me into the villain again. He took a break. His voice cracked. I do not wish for my sister to die, ever. But I will not save the people who killed me while I was still alive. I will not give them a piece of my body as a currency for their redemption. I am not their second chance. He ended with a heartbreaking sentence. I am not a monster, I just learned to say no, and this time, I am the one breaking the silence. He stopped the video, and I stood there stunned, my phone in my hand. The notifications began coming in. But now the comments were intended for us. What kind of mother allows that? You are the real monsters. She lies. You attack. And he's supposed to save you? Disgusting. I hope you live with that guilt for the rest of your lives. The private messages were terrible. My sister has blocked me. My folks called me and cried. My sister-in-law wrote to say she hoped the same thing happened to me. Isabella saw the video. She saw everything. I discovered her crying alone in her bed. "Everyone hates me," she said. "Everyone, even him." I didn't know how to respond. I just hugged her, but I'm not sure if it was out of love or remorse. The video has gone viral. In less than 24 hours, Adrian's post was shared on Facebook groups, Reddit, TikTok accounts that collected family confessions, and even Twitter threads arguing whether he should give the kidney. It wasn't only our narrative anymore, now everyone had an opinion. The majority supported him. Some argue that forgiveness does not force you to sacrifice yourself. Others replied, "A kidney doesn't pay for a ruined life." And many simply said what I couldn't ignore: they deserve it. Isabella, who had before been just another victim in a hospital, was now viewed as a manipulator and liar. The phrase false accuser began emerging in the comments. One that cut me like a dagger was, "Let her die, just as she almost killed her brother." I had to erase the message. But it was too late. The damage had been done. But Adrian was not finished. A day after the first video, he posted another. This time, he wasn't speaking in the park. He was sitting at a table, holding a piece of paper in his hand. I've received a lot of questions, and the most common one is, "Why can't you just forgive?" I'm going to try to explain it without anesthesia. His voice was calm, tired, and precise. I was accused of child abuse. There was no trial or proof, just a phrase shouted aloud, and that was enough. I lost my house, my schooling, and my name. I became a pariah, and no one wanted to be near me. Have you ever attempted to rent a room with the rumor that you abused someone? Have you ever tried to find work with a stain you can't erase, even if it's a lie? He held up a document. His medical records from a year ago show that he was treated for suicidal ideation, severe depression, and starvation. The first time I slept under a bridge, it was raining. The second night, I thought about swallowing all the pills I had. The third, someone spat on me in the street. He yelled, "Child abuser," at me, and I had no one to call. He put the document on the table. "I don't need you to understand me. I just need you to listen. I don't want revenge. I do not wish for my sister's death. But I will not offer myself up as a martyr for a family that buried me alive." He picked up a photograph. It was of him and Isabella when she was a small child. They were smiling. His hand was shaky. "I loved her. She was my sister. I made her breakfast, changed her clothes, waited for her after school. And when she said what she said, she didn't just destroy my life. She destroyed me." He tore the photograph in half. He remained silent for a few seconds. "My kidney is not a currency of redemption. I am not the cure for anyone's guilt. I will not donate, and I will not apologize for it." He ended the video with a line that felt like a bullet. "If you look for me at the funeral, I'll be in the back. Not to comfort, but to watch what you built and left to die." He put the camera away. I vomited after seeing it. That is not a metaphor. I practically vomited in the hospital bathroom, from terror, remorse, and the fact that I could no longer hide. When I returned to the room, Isabella was awake. Her eyes were inflamed. She didn't say anything, only said, "Does he hate me?" I didn't know what to reply because I had no idea how he felt, only what I had done and what was coming. The doctors informed us that her condition was deteriorating, that the days were numbered, that there was no longer time to wait for regular donors, and that Adrian remained the most compatible candidate. But he had already mentioned that there would be no donations. That night, my spouse burst. "Damn selfish, ungrateful bastard. Let him rot wherever he is." I tried to calm him down, telling him that cursing would not help. "And what do you expect me to do? Applaud him for letting his sister die?" He isolated himself in the kitchen and smashed a dish. I sat alone. In solitude, I grieved as I glanced at images on my phone of them as children, when they were innocent. I cried like I never had before because I knew Isabella was going to die. And it wasn't due to a shortage of kidneys, it was for something far worse: a family's refusal to listen, believe, and love unreservedly. The room smelt like disinfectant and sadness. Isabella was unconscious and linked to more machinery than her body. Her skin was nearly translucent. Every time the alarm went off, I held my breath. The doctor would come in, check, change something, and depart with the same expression. Containment, not solution, only waiting. The donation list was not moving, the compatibilities were minor. The chances are nearly negligible, and Adrian was gone. After his second video, he vanished entirely, deleting his social media accounts, changing his phone number, leaving no trace. Nobody knew where he was. And to be honest, I wasn't sure I wanted him found. Not for his sake, but because I was concerned about what my husband would do if he ever saw him again. The days passed like sluggish blades. The hateful messages were no longer visible. They were now private. Some wrote to wish me strength. Others would tell me I deserved every moment of pain. A woman I didn't know sent me a message. Proud of yourself now. You raised a daughter who lied and a son you destroyed. I hung up the phone. I did not switch it on again. One morning in the early hours, the doctor summoned us. The sentence was direct. Prepare yourselves. She's no longer responding. It's just a matter of waiting for the moment. I walked out into the hallway. I slid from the wall to the floor. I did not cry. I just hugged my knees. My hubby didn't say anything. He was pale and shocked. He was not the same person who had beaten his son that night. He was a broken statue, waiting to be crushed totally. I returned to the room. I grasped Isabella's hand and whispered, "I'm here, my love. Mommy's here." There was no response. Just a continuous beep from the cardiac monitor. I closed my eyes and prayed for the first time. Not to a god, not for a miracle. I asked for time, just a little more, just a bit more. And day later, we got a letter with no return address. There is no name, only a sheet of paper folded in three. It came from Adrian. Don't search for me, I'm not going to change my mind. I don't want her to die, but I won't take part in a forced redemption play. Isabella lied, and you believed her. I was sentenced without a trial, and all I wanted for was to be heard. Which no one granted. So don't ask me to give you my body now. You've already taken my soul. They believe death redeems, but I died 2 years ago. Her end is not my fault. It is an echo of her origin. I hope you find peace, but don't search for it in me. There was no signature. Only a photo of him smiling from years ago, when he still considered us family. Isabella died a week later. There were no screams or warnings, just a flat tone and a straight line across the screen. My husband collapsed. I did not yell. I did not cry. I just held her until they removed her out of my arms. The funeral was modest and frigid. The majority of the family had withdrawn themselves, some out of shame and others out of hatred. Nobody knew what to say to us. And Adrian, he did come. He arrived in quiet, sat in the rear, did not cry, look at us, or approach the casket. Finally he rose up, left a single flower, and walked away silently. Today, I'm writing from a silent house. My husband no longer speaks. He spends his days watching television with the volume turned off. I stroll through the empty rooms with my daughter's clothes still folded on her bed. Every now and then, I look back at her last photo, when she was still breathing and had a chance. And I think of Adrian, of his words, his broken stare, of what we did and did not do. And I remind myself, death does not come alone, it carries remorse and memories with it. And neither can be buried. One suggestion. I read your whole story. I sat in silence and could only think. What an insane mother. You literally killed him in life and then you expect him to save you. After you took everything from him, now you're asking for an organ. If I were him, I wouldn't have given it to you either. In fact, I'd be in the line of people spitting in your face. I hope his gaze haunts you until your last day. 2 further comments. You left him without a home, without food, without emotional support, without a future, and you wanted him to risk his health for you. How can you even ask why he didn't want to donate? The answer is obvious and painful, because you killed him first. A 3rd comment. Your story is the closest thing I've read to a slow-motion murder. Adrian died when you threw him out on the street like trash, and now you're crying because he wouldn't save the one who lied. Did it not occur to you that every time he saw his sister, he was reliving the trauma? The nerve? The ego? The total lack of humanity. A 4th comment follows. The way you minimize everything you did is terrifying. My husband hit him. It sounds like you're saying he spilled his coffee. Your son was physically assaulted, thrown out, abandoned, and vilified by everyone. And you recount it as if it were an uncomfortable anecdote. What kind of emotional psychopath are you? The 5th comment is, you know what the worst part of all this was? That your daughter confessed she lied and you still decided to use her tragedy to manipulate your son again. You learned nothing. You just changed tactics. First it was guilt, then fear, then public blackmail. You are the nightmare of any human being with a mother. The 6th comment. I refuse to feel sorry for you. You made your son's life impossible. Then you tried to paint him as a monster for not donating a damn kidney. You used him like a piece of meat, and when he said no, you tried to manipulate the entire internet. How shameful. What moral depravity. I hope you never find peace. The 7th comment. Adrian is a hero for still being alive after what you did to him. He was the one who deserved help. He was the one who needed urgent therapy. But you were too busy protecting your parental egos to see that you were destroying him. And even today, you continue to blame him. Monstrous. The 8th comment. What did you expect? That he would give you the kidney and then you'd all pose for a reconciled family photo? This isn't a fairy tale. This is real life. And in real life, the people you destroy don't come back when it's convenient for you. They don't forgive you automatically. They don't save you just because you're bleeding crocodile tears. Comment 9 is as follows. You used his pain as a public weapon, you exposed him with his full name, you humiliated him after having already thrown him onto the street. And you wonder why he blocked you? The question should be, how did he not sue you? Because he had more than enough reason. It's a miracle you're not in jail. And it's a miracle he's sane. A 10th comment. Isabella didn't die from lack of a kidney. She died from a lie and from parents who didn't know how to handle it. The blame isn't Adrian's, it's yours. You killed her with silence, with denial, with manipulation. And now you want to lay the corpse at his feet? I don't buy it. I'm not swallowing that. Parents secretly used $15,500 on my credit card for my sister's Europe trip. I reported them, hired a lawyer, and turned their scheme upside down. I am Lucas, a 28-year-old man, and my younger sister Lily, a 22-year-old female, recently graduated from college. Our parents have always had an odd approach to parenting, but this newest act has made me enraged. To provide some context, I've always been the responsible member of the family. I worked hard in school, received scholarships, and found a nice career in finance right out of college. I've been financially independent since I was 22, and I'm pleased of my accomplishments. Lily, on the other hand, has always been the baby in the family. Don't get me wrong, I adore my sister, but she's clearly been coddled by our parents. Growing up, it was obvious that Lily was the favorite. She was given the latest clothes and gadgets and was never forced to work part-time or help with home duties. I tried not to let it affect me too much, focused instead on my own aspirations and future, but occasionally the partiality was difficult to ignore. I recall one specific instance when I was 16 and Lily was 10. I'd been saving for months to buy a new gaming console. When I finally had enough money, I joyfully informed my parents that I was going to the store to buy it. To my surprise, they answered, "Oh, we already bought one for Lily last week. You can share hers." I was upset, but I swallowed my disappointment and tried to be pleased for my sister. Let's fast forward to the present. Lily recently finished with a communications degree. I am truly proud of her. She worked hard and earned the right to celebrate her accomplishment. I also sent her a wonderful graduation gift. A new laptop she had been wanting. My mom called me last week. She was overjoyed, telling me how they had prepared the ideal graduation gift for Lily, a month-long vacation of Europe. I was overjoyed for Lily, believing it was a lovely gift from our parents, but then the bombshell dropped. "We used your credit card to book it all," my mother explained nonchalantly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "We'll pay you back, of course, but we needed the points from your card to upgrade some of the flights and hotels." I was speechless. I couldn't believe what I heard. When I finally recovered my voice, I inquired about the amount they had spent. The response made me feel as if I had been punched in the gut. $15,500. $15,500 was charged to my credit card without my knowledge or consent. "Mom," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "You can't just use my credit card without asking me. That's illegal, and $15,500 is a lot of money." She dismissed my concerns. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Lucas. It's for your sister's graduation. We're family, and family helps each other out. Besides, we're good for it. We'll pay you back eventually." Eventually? What exactly did that mean? And since when has $15,500 been considered casual? I tried to explain to my mother why this was such a significant deal. The effect on my credit score, the possibility that I may need the credit limit for an emergency, and the sheer breach of trust. But she didn't hear it. "You've always been so selfish," she replied, her voice becoming cold. "Can't you just be happy for your sister? This is her big moment, and you're trying to ruin it with your penny-pinching ways." I couldn't believe what I heard. I was considered selfish for being concerned about a $15,500 unauthorized charge on my credit card. I hung off the phone feeling angry. wounded, and incredulous. Over the next few days I tried to talk to my father, hoping he'd be more reasonable, but he agreed with my mother, telling me I was overreacting and that I should be more supportive of my sister. Lily, for her part, appeared clueless to the entire event. When I tried to talk to her about it, she just gushed about how happy she was for the trip and thanked me for helping with her graduation gift. I felt crazy. Was I truly the unreasonable one here? I decided to phone the credit card company to dispute the charges, but to my astonishment, I learned that my parents had used my card information, which they kept in case of an emergency, to book everything online. The credit card company stated that because I had provided them my information, it was not deemed fraud. Now I'm faced with a $15,500 bill, a maxed-out credit card, and a family who thinks I'm greedy for refusing to pay my sister's lavish vacation. I am hurt, furious, and feel betrayed by those who are supposed to love and support me. I do not know what to do. Part of me wants to cancel the entire vacation, but I know it would cause a major schism in our family. Another part of me wants to just pay it off to avoid the fuss, but $15,500 is a large sum of money, and the principle of the situation bothers me. Plus, I'm concerned that if I let this go, it may set a precedent for future financial exploitation. Am I overreacting? Should I just suck it up and pay for my sister's vacation, or should I remain firm, even if it means risking my connection with my family? I'm feeling lost and could use some advice. Update 1. I appreciate everyone's encouraging remarks and advice. I was stunned by the huge response to my post. Reading through your comments helped me realize that I wasn't insane for feeling violated and outraged over this scenario. I took your counsel and decided to take action. First, I called my credit card company again to escalate the situation. I described the scenario in detail, emphasizing that, while my parents had my card information for emergencies, I had never allowed this exact use. After some back and forth, they decided to look into the charges as possible fraud. Next, I sent a group text to my parents and Lily, requesting a Zoom call to discuss the problem. I wanted to give them the opportunity to set things right before taking more serious actions. The call was intense. I began by calmly describing why their actions were unacceptable. The legal consequences, the violation of trust, and the financial strain it placed on me. I informed them that I had reported the transactions as fraudulent and that they needed to cancel the trip immediately. My parents' reaction did not meet my expectations. They were furious, accusing me of being dramatic and attempting to derail Lily's graduation party. My mom went so far as to say, "We raised you, clothed you, and put a roof over your head. The least you could do is help give your sister the trip of a lifetime." I took a deep breath before responding. "You chose to have children. Providing for us was your responsibility as parents. It doesn't mean you get to commit credit card fraud in my name." And Lily, who had remained calm until now, burst into sobs. "I can't believe you're trying to ruin my graduation gift," she said. "You've always been jealous of me. Why can't you be happy for me for once?" Her comments hurt, but they also bolstered my determination. I saw that this pattern of entitlement and favoritism was pervasive, and it was necessary to establish some clear boundaries. "Lily," I began, trying to keep my voice calm but firm. "I'm happy for you. I'm proud of your graduation. But this trip was booked illegally using my money without my permission. It's not a gift from me, and it's not okay." My father, who had been unusually silent, eventually spoke up. "Son, we didn't think it was such a big deal. We've always had access to your card for emergencies. We just thought, as family, it would be okay this one time." I couldn't believe what I heard. "Dad, $15,500 is not a small amount, and this was not an emergency. You can't just decide to spend my money without asking me." The call concluded with my parents outraged, Lily in tears, and me exhausted yet determined. They declined to cancel the trip, claiming that I was overreacting and that they would reimburse me. Soon after the call, I took the next move. I contacted a lawyer buddy of mine and discussed the circumstances. He informed me that what my parents did was illegal, and that if I chose to take legal action, I would have valid reasons. I also went to the police station and reported the unauthorized usage of my credit card. The officer I dealt with was compassionate and took down all the information. He advised me that pressing charges would most certainly cause a significant schism in my family, but he also informed me that I was perfectly within my rights to do so. I'm still torn about what to do next. On the one hand, I adore my family, and the thought of pursuing legal action against them makes me sick. On the other hand, their behavior is inappropriate, and I'm concerned that if I don't take a firm stance now, this will happen again in the future. For the time being, I've opted to await the results of the credit card company's investigation. I have also frozen my credit to prevent further fraudulent usage of my information. This entire experience has made me understand that I need to set tighter boundaries with my family. I've always tried to be the peacekeeper, to smooth things over and make everyone happy, but in doing so, I've let myself be taken advantage of numerous times. I am hurt and outraged, but I also feel a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time, I'm standing up for myself and saying, no. This is not okay. It's unsettling and frightening, but it also feels important. Thank you all again for your encouragement and wisdom. I'll update again if I receive more information about the credit card investigation, or if anything else happens with my family. Update 2. It's been several weeks since my last update, and a lot has happened. I'd like to thank everyone again for their help and advice. Your remarks have given me strength at this tough time. First, good news. The credit card company's probe ended in my favor. They agreed that the accusations were improper and reversed them. It's a big relief to have the $15,500 burden removed off my shoulders. Now for the familial fallout. When my parents and Lily discovered that the vacation had been canceled owing to a credit card chargeback, all hell broke loose. My phone was full of angry calls and texts. My mother left a particularly harsh voicemail, calling me a greedy, ungrateful son who had ruined Lily's life. Lily resorted to social media, sharing an emotional video describing how her spiteful brother had ruined her ideal graduation trip. Some of our shared acquaintances and extended family members began to contact me, asking why I was treating my younger sister so badly. The situation was spiraling out of control, and I realized I needed to correct the record. I made a calm, factual post detailing what had actually happened, how my card had been used without my consent, and how I had attempted to handle the situation with my family before contacting the credit card company. The response to my post was varied. Some others were supportive, expressing surprise at my parents' behavior. Others still believed I should have just taken one for the team and let Lily have her trip. It was surprising to learn how many people believed it was acceptable to conduct fraud as long as it was for family. A few days after my post, I got a surprise call from my aunt, my mother's sister. She was empathetic to my predicament and told me about some family history that I didn't know. Apparently, my mother had a history of financial carelessness and had previously taken advantage of family members. My aunt encouraged me to hold firm and offered her support. This chat with my aunt made me realize that the problem was deeper than simply this one episode. It was a pattern of behavior that had been tolerated and justified for years. I understood then that I needed to set clear boundaries, not just for myself, but also to halt the pattern of financial abuse. I decided to take a major step. I informed my parents that I would be in no communication with them for the foreseeable future. I mentioned that I needed time to comprehend what had transpired and could not trust them just now. I also informed Lily that, while I loved her and was pleased of her accomplishments, I wanted some space from her as well. Their reactions were unsurprisingly negative. My parents accused me of pulling the family apart. Lily screamed, accusing me of punishing her for something she didn't do. It was difficult, but I stood by my decision. In the midst of all this familial dysfunction, I've been working on safeguarding myself against future financial exploitation. I changed all of my passwords, closed the credit card that my parents had access to, and opened a new one with a different bank. I've also started seeing a therapist to work through my emotions about the situation and establish healthier limits. One unexpected positive result of this journey has been a closer relationship with my aunt and a couple of cousins who have reached out to provide assistance. It's comforting to know that not everyone in my family feels what my parents did was acceptable. Regarding Lily's graduation vacation, I heard through the family grapevine that my parents are still considering about sending her somewhere. Part of me feels sorry for her losing out on the Europe trip, but I keep reminding myself that it was not my obligation to provide it for her. I am still dealing with thoughts of guilt and mistrust. There are times when I question if I did the right thing, or if I was too harsh. But then I recall how violated I felt when I learned what they had done, and I know I made the correct decision by sticking up for myself. This incident was a tough wake-up call, but it also taught me valuable lessons about self-respect and setting limits. I'm learning that it's all right to say no, even to family, and that love should not have a price. Thank you again for your support. I'll keep you updated if there are any important developments, but for the time being, I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. Post 3. It's been approximately 2 months since my last post, and I'd want to share some developments with you all. Your ongoing support and advice have been vital during this difficult time. First, I'll address the most important issue, the legal status. After careful study and consulting with my lawyer, I decided not to file charges against my parents. This was not an easy decision, and I know many of you advised me to pursue legal action. However, my lawyer said that because the credit card company had reversed the charges, prosecuting a criminal case would be hard and potentially costly, with no assurance of success. Instead, we wrote my parents a formal cease and desist letter, informing them that any future attempts to use my financial information would result in instant legal action. Now for the family situation. My no-contact period with my parents and Lily has been both difficult and educational. It's given me time to ponder on our family relationships and improve myself. I've been going to therapy on a regular basis, which has been quite beneficial in helping me process my feelings and set healthier limits. About a month into the no-contact period, I got an unexpected email from Lily. Compared to her prior crying claims, this email was rather sophisticated. She wrote that she had thought a lot about our parents' actions and realized how wrong they were. She apologized for her first reaction and for not advocating for me. Lily said that she had always known about the favoritism but had been too afraid and comfortable to question it. I was cautiously optimistic about Lily's email but decided to take it slowly. We've had a few phone talks since then, and I can tell she truly wants to understand my point of view. She revealed some of her own experiences with our parents' financial irresponsibility, which she had previously kept to herself. The aborted trip to Europe appears to have served as a wake-up call for her as well. My parents have been less inclined to accept responsibility. They've made multiple attempts to reach me, including angry voicemails and guilt-tripping emails. My mother even showed up at my place unexpectedly one day, causing quite a ruckus in the hallway. I held firm and refused to engage, which was difficult but important. The situation with extended family members has been mixed. Some family have been helpful, particularly my aunt, who first contacted out. She has become an important ally and source of support. Others, however, continue to encourage me to reconcile with my parents, citing the "but their family" argument. I've had to distance myself from some of these family for my own mental health. On a good side, this predicament has resulted in some unanticipated personal development. With the time and energy I used to devote to dealing with my family's problems, I've been able to concentrate more on my own life and ambitions. I've started a new passion, photography, and I'm spending more time with pals that respect my boundaries. I've also made important financial decisions. I've upped my payments to retirement accounts and begun to construct a more substantial emergency fund. This entire experience has truly emphasized the significance of financial independence and stability. Last week, I had an especially satisfying moment. I was promoted at work, which came with a big wage increase. Previously, I might have felt forced to share this news and the financial rewards with my family. This time, I celebrated quietly with a few close friends, pleased of my successes but free of shame or obligation to share. Regarding Lily's graduation vacation, my aunt informed me that our parents decided to send her on a 2-week tour of California. Lily seemed to appreciate it. Looking ahead, I am cautiously optimistic. I've chosen to extend my no-contact period with my parents for at least 3 more months. I need more time to recuperate and to determine whether they are capable of respecting my boundaries. I'm willing to gradually re-establish our relationship with Lily, but I'm treading carefully and setting firm boundaries. This event taught me a lot about setting boundaries, advocating for myself, and understanding the actual meaning of family. I've understood that family is more than just blood links. It's about mutual respect, support, and love. The friends and relatives who have supported me during this ordeal have taught me what true family is like. I also learned an important lesson about financial freedom. I've always been good with money, but this situation has made me even more attentive. I've increased security measures on all of my accounts and grown more forceful about protecting my financial information, even from family members. There have been moments of doubt and sadness, particularly when I have missed family gatherings due to the no-contact policy. Mother's Day was very painful, but I remind myself that this separation is essential for my mental health and personal development. One unanticipated result of this scenario is that I've become a resource for friends who are coping with financial problems in their own families. Several people have contacted me for guidance on setting boundaries and dealing with financially irresponsible family members. It is great to be able to assist others in similar situations. My aunt informed me that my parents are experiencing financial difficulties. Apparently, they had planned to use my credit for more than simply Lily's vacation. This has resulted in some arguments between them, with my father blaming my mother for going too far with the credit card fraud. Part of me feels awful knowing they're struggling financially, but I remind myself that it's not my obligation to correct their poor financial decisions. Lily has provided some insight into our parents' reactions to all of this. She claims they're still not sure why I responded so strongly. They regard their acts as a natural part of being a family and don't understand why I'm making such a big deal about it. This lack of understanding is frustrating, but it also confirms that I made the proper decision to distance myself. I've been reflecting a lot about my upbringing and early adulthood, noticing patterns of financial and emotional exploitation that I had internalized. It's been both heartbreaking and liberating. I'm learning to validate my own emotions and experiences without needing permission from my parents. In my personal life, I've begun dating again. I was scared to become involved with anyone while dealing with so much family dysfunction, but I recently met someone who has been quite sympathetic of my position. It's early days, but it feels fantastic to be connecting with someone that respects my boundaries and principles. I'm also considering making some major life adjustments. I've always wanted to get a master's degree, but I put it off because I was concerned about how it would affect my capacity to support my family financially. Now I'm actively researching programs and contemplating taking the plunge. It is empowered to make decisions based simply on what is best for me and my future. As I write this report, I am impressed by how much has changed in only a few months. The initial shock and indignation have subsided, replaced by a sense of quiet determination. I am no longer simply responding to my family's activities. I'm actively building the life I desire for myself. To those of you who are coping with similar family troubles, I want to express that it will get better. Setting boundaries is difficult, and there may be reaction. But stay strong. You have the right to safeguard yourself, your wealth, and your mental health. Thank you all for your continued support throughout this adventure. Your counsel and encouragement have been lifelines. I am not sure what the future holds for my relationship with my parents and sister, but I am confident that whatever happens, I will be fine. I'm stronger, more confident in myself, and prepared to face whatever comes next. I will provide an update if there are any important developments, but for the time being, I am focused on moving forward and creating the life I want, surrounded by people who respect and support me. Here's to new beginnings and hard-gained wisdom. Update 4. It's been 6 months since my previous update, and I felt it was time to share the most recent developments with everyone who has been so supportive along this trip. First, the major news. I've been accepted to a master's program at a city around 3 hours from where I now live. It's a 2-year financial technology curriculum that precisely coincides with my professional ambitions. I start this fall, and I'm both eager and scared about this new chapter in my life. The decision to seek this degree was not simple. It entails leaving my work, relocating to a new city, and taking out some student debts. However, it also entails investing in myself and my future in ways I've always wanted to. I realized I had been holding myself back by constantly considering how my decisions would affect my family. Now I'm making decisions based on what's best for me, which feels extremely liberated. My family situation has taken unexpected turns. My no-contact period with my parents officially ended 2 months ago. I consented to participate in a family therapy session led by a professional therapist. It was intense. My parents responded defensively, arguing that they had done nothing wrong. However, as the discussion went, several shocking truths emerged. It turned out that my father had lost a considerable amount of money in a disastrous venture, which he had kept from everyone, including my mother. They'd been discreetly struggling financially for months and saw my credit card as a method to keep up appearances. This discovery caused a lot of tears and recriminations. My mother felt betrayed by my father's secrecy. My father felt ashamed of his terrible financial judgments. And both of them seemed to realize the significance of what they had done to me. While this explanation does not justify their actions, it does help me understand the desperation that drove their awful decisions. The therapist assisted us in working through some of these difficulties, and for the first time, I received genuine apologies from both of my parents. We agreed to continue family therapy sessions on a monthly basis. It's a lengthy process, and I'm still setting tough boundaries, but I'm cautiously optimistic about repairing our connection on better terms. Lily has continued to develop and mature. She has taken steps to achieve financial independence, such as taking a full-time job and moving into her own apartment. We've started communicating more frequently, and I feel like I'm getting to know my sister as an adult for the first time. She's even asked for budgeting and saving tips, which feels like a big step forward in our relationship. On a personal level, the relationship I highlighted in my previous report has developed into something wonderful. Ingrid has been really supportive of my desire to return to school, despite the fact that it will need us to travel large distances for some time. Her personal experiences with creating boundaries with family have made her an invaluable source of support and understanding. Financially, I'm doing well. The promotion I obtained enabled me to save a large amount of money for my transfer and to help offset some of the expenditures of graduate studies. I've also gotten much more forceful in protecting my financial information. I recently had to turn down an attempt by a distant relative to persuade me to co-sign a loan. It was not easy, but I held firm, and it felt good to establish my boundaries. As I prepare for this new chapter in my life, I've been thinking about how much has changed since that first shocking phone call from my mother about the credit card charges. The pain and rage I felt back then have mostly vanished, giving way to a sense of empowerment and self-assurance I had no idea I had. I've learned a lot from this experience. I've learned the value of establishing and keeping boundaries, especially with family. I've realized that it's acceptable to prioritize my own well-being and future. And I've learned that true family, whether blood or choice, encourages growth and respects personal limits. Thank you to everyone who has followed my story and contributed support and advice along the way. During some of the most trying times, your words have provided me with strength and insight. Those going through comparable family issues should know that they can come out stronger and wiser. As I pack my flat and prepare for this new journey, I experience a surge of excitement and possibilities that I haven't felt in years. I am proud of how far I have come, and I am excited about what the future holds. I may not be able to update for a long due to my upcoming move and start of school, but I will always be grateful for the support I've received here. You're such an idiot, my brother laughed after he stole my identity to buy a $45,000 truck. Now he ended up with 2 years in federal prison. Hello Reddit. My brother took my money for a truck and using my identity, so I sued him. He believed that familial connections would save him. The federal penitentiary disagreed. It turns out I wasn't the only one he had defrauded. Before we begin, let me establish the scene. I am 29, male, and have been working as an electrician in Kansas City for the past 8 years. I began as an apprentice, earning $12.80 per hour, getting shocked on a daily basis, and being treated like trash by journeymen who believed hazing was a personality feature. Now I run my own crew, make 6 figures when the business is solid, and own my home completely in Brookside. Not bad for a guy who started with nothing but a high school certificate and a tenacity that stretched the length of Interstate 70. Everything was built from scratch. There are no family links, no silver spoons. The early days were terrible. I recall one job when I had to crawl into a century-old warehouse basement, fighting rats and asbestos insulation, to install new wire for some cheapskate who believed code compliance was a suggestion. I spent 14 hours in that hellhole, returned home looking like I had been dragged behind a vehicle, and earned $180 for the day. However, every money went into my never work for someone else again fund. My breakthrough came when I was awarded a contract to rewire the old Kemper Arena, which was being converted into junior sports facilities. 6 months of consistent work, a decent team, and enough profit to eventually purchase my own truck and some genuine equipment. That was when I realized I could make this work. My 26-year-old brother Dylan is a master at professional disappointment. I dropped out of community college after 1 semester and bounced between entry-level retail jobs and get-rich-quick scams that usually ended the same way, him contacting me at midnight asking for bail money. I paid for his first semester, $2,800, because he promised to study. When I discovered he had been spending his days at the student union playing video games, I drove to college and spoke with him. You want to drop out? Fine, but you're paying me back the tuition money, bro. That's not how college works. Sometimes you have to pivot, and sometimes you just have to stop talking and finish what you started. He never repaid me. While I was crawling around 120-degree attics and getting my hands ripped up on metal conduit, Dylan was producing TikTok videos about the entrepreneurial attitude and lecturing to anyone who would listen why manual labor was for suckers with no vision. My cousin Caleb and I used to watch his movies when we needed a giggle after a particularly bad workday. Nothing like seeing your brother explain passive income while living in your parents' basement and stealing their groceries. Our folks are full enablers. Mom handled Dylan as if he were Steve Jobs trapped in a Best Buy employee's body. Dad insisted that Dylan only needed the proper opportunity. When Dylan was fired from GameStop for regularly showing up late, Mom drove him to work for 2 weeks until he found another job. When it turned out to be a pyramid business selling energy drinks, Dad went through a 40-minute presentation on residual income. He's got enthusiasm, Dad would say. That's worth something. So does a golden retriever, I'll reply. Doesn't mean you give it a credit card. I was the responsible person who could handle his difficulties. Dylan was the creative one who simply required more time to work things out. The double standard irritated me the most. When I first started my electrical business, I asked Dad for a small loan of $3,000 to purchase equipment and licensing expenses. The answer was, "Son, you need to learn to stand on your own feet. Building character means handling your own problems." However, when Dylan required money for his enterprises, family support became critical to success. For many years I played along. Family is family, right? I imagined he'd grow up, discover what real labor was like, and maybe even thank me for keeping him afloat. Wrong. I made the error of assuming Dylan only needed actual work experience about 3 months prior to the truck incident. Real work. I worked on a residential project in Leawood, rewiring a lawyer's 1960s built property. Mr. Whitaker, the homeowner, was one of those old school guys who valued craftsmanship and made timely payments. Easy money, uncomplicated job, and my crew could finish it in 4 days. That's when I had the wonderful idea to bring Dylan along as a helper. Give him the opportunity to see what real work looks like. Maybe learn a trade and get some goddamn work ethic. You want me to do what? Dylan asked when I called him. Work? I don't know anything about electrical work. That's why it's called learning. You carry tools, hand me stuff and try not to electrocute yourself. $15 an hour to start. $15 an hour seemed generous for someone whose only qualification was sharing my DNA. But I believed that if he could do basic labor for a week without making a mistake, there could be some possibility. When do I start? Tomorrow 7 a.m. sharp. Wear work boots and clothes you don't mind getting dirty. 7 a.m.? Dude, that's early. Day 1. Dylan showed up around 8:30 a.m. Sorry I'm late. My alarm didn't go off and then I had to stop for coffee because... Save it. Here's your safety gear. I gave him a hard hat, safety glasses, and work gloves. He looked at them as if I had handed him medieval torture instruments. Do I really need all this? It's just a house. You really want to explain to Mom why you're in the ER? Because you were too cool for safety equipment? For the first hour, everything went well. I had him organize tools and transport supplies upstairs. Basic nonsense that even Dylan couldn't botch up. Then I instructed him to get my wire strippers from the blue toolbox in the vehicle. 10 minutes later, he returned empty-handed. They sat directly on top. Dylan, are you serious? Yeah, there's like a million tools in there. I don't know what wire strippers look like. I went to the truck myself. The wire strippers were resting right on top of the other equipment, just where I had left them. The breaking point occurred on day 3. I was working in Whitaker's daughter's bedroom. She returned home from college for the summer. Nice youngster, a pre-med student who works at Country Club Plaza to help pay for school. I left Dylan to organize tools in the corridor while I installed new outlets along the baseboards. When I returned 20 minutes later, he was gone. I caught him on the back patio, trying to gain the girl's number. So, you're studying medicine. That's cool. I'm actually an entrepreneur myself. Ever heard of social media marketing? The poor girl seemed trapped, delivering polite remarks while clearly wanting to flee. Her face lit up with relief as she saw me. Okay, good. Brody's back. I was just telling your brother about my organic chemistry class. I grabbed Dylan's arm and drew him away. What the hell are you doing? Just being friendly. You said customer service was important. Customer service means being polite and professional, not hitting on the client's daughter while you're supposed to be working. I was networking. That evening Mr. Whitaker approached me as we were closing up. Brody, I don't want to tell you how to run your business, but your helper seems a bit unfocused. He spent 20 minutes explaining to my daughter why college was a waste of time. She's a Dean's List student working toward medical school. I wanted to disappear into the floor. The final calamity occurred the next morning. I gave him a simple task. Transfer the extension ladder from the front yard to the rear. He dragged the fully extended ladder around the house, catching a gutter, pulling down the electricity line, and knocking the meter half off the wall. I heard the boom from inside and dashed outside to find Dylan standing next to a 40-foot ladder entangled in power lines, the electricity meter dangling at an unsafe angle. It just got stuck, he explained, as if this was an inescapable act of God. Before we could make any repairs, the power company had to come out and de-energize the lines. Mr. Whitaker was without electricity for 6 hours. The repair cost me $1,200 out of pocket, plus an awkward chat regarding liability insurance. Dylan stated, I don't understand why you're so mad, as I drove him home that evening. Accidents happen. Accidents happen when you're being careful and something goes wrong. This happened because you were being lazy and stupid. That was it. Done. No more chances. No more family favors. No more attempting to help someone who refused to be helped. 3 months later, he contacted me with some new BS. He called during an emergency task. Some guy attempted to build his own breaker box and nearly burned down half of Midtown. My phone exploded as I was elbow deep in cleaning up his mess. Emergency. Need $10,800 today or I'm getting evicted. I left the job site to deal with Dylan's dilemma, spending 2 hours on the phone with his landlord, who patiently explained that Dylan was 2 months past on rent and had been too busy with projects to return his calls. The landlord, Steve, was actually rather nice about it. "Look, your brother seems like a nice kid, but nice doesn't pay rent. I've got bills too. What's he been telling you about the money situation?" Said he was waiting on a big contract to come through, some marketing deal that was going to pay him 15 grand. I was almost embarrassed. He'd purchased a $600 gaming chair the week before. When I confronted him, he said it was a business investment because Twitch stardom evidently needed lumbar support, so I told him I couldn't assist. The tantrum was fantastic, with me yelling about how I had forgotten where I came from and how prosperity had caused me to look down on my family. The tag team guilt assault began. Mom called, crying because Dylan would be homeless. Dad called, disappointed, and asked if this was the guy I had become. "What if it was you who needed help, son?" "Dad, if it was me, I'd get a second job, or a first job, or any job." But I felt guilty about it. It always has. I caved. I sent the money. 3 weeks later, Dylan shared Instagram stories from a music festival discussing the importance of investing in experiences over material possessions. That's when it struck me. I wasn't assisting family. My folks cheered from the sidelines while I subsidized a mature man's Peter Pan complex. The enormous electricity contract I got from the city was meant to be my ticket to finally having some breathing room. Worked steadily for 2 years, had an 8-man crew, and had enough money to consider getting married and creating my own family, which made me an even more appealing target for family vultures. However, I had begun to decline minor requests, which upset them. Dylan had been abnormally silent in the week prior to the truck collision. There were no desperate phone calls, no unexpected situations, and no visits when he happened to be in the area around dinner time. Caleb sent me a message. "Heads up. Saw Dylan at the Ford dealership yesterday pointing at trucks and talking on the phone. Looks sketchy as hell." Caleb is the only family member with his mind screwed on straight. Worked in construction, paid his own expenses, and called shit what it was. When family dinners evolved into Dylan pity parties, Caleb and I would usually wind up on the back porch talking about everyday things like sports and work, while the adults inside tried to figure out why Dylan couldn't find work. "Think he's finally getting a job that requires a truck," I texted back. "Yeah, and I'm thinking about becoming a ballet dancer." Dude was wearing a button-down shirt that still had creases from the package. Caleb messaged me. "Heads up. Saw Dylan at the Ford dealership yesterday pointing at trucks and talking on the phone. Looked sketchy as hell." We were both mistaken. I should have listened, but I was preoccupied with a business project downtown. I'm sitting in my truck after a 12-hour shift, coated in dust and feeling like I've been hit by a freight train. Some clever contractor had wired an entire office building like he was playing electrical Jenga, and my staff spent the day correcting his amateurish work. The owner of the building was also a nasty jerk. I kept wondering why we couldn't just make it function rather than getting everything up to code. It appears that fire safety was optional in his environment. I only wanted a drink and 8 hours of sleep. That's when Dylan emailed me a photograph. Consider this. A brand new Ford F-150 candy apple red parked in our parents' driveway like it owned the area. Chrome running boards, tinted windows, the works. This was not a work truck. This $45,000 statement piece proclaimed, "I'm compensating for something." Dylan is standing next to it with the biggest shit-eating grin I've ever seen. Keys dangled from his finger like if he had won the lotto. Caption: "Thanks for the truck, bro. You're such an idiot." My blood pressure was so high that I believed I was having a stroke. See, we hadn't spoken in over 2 weeks. Things have become heated since I refused to send money. So I opened my banking application. $8,200, Ford Motors credit. The down payment was processed. The charge came from a credit card I rarely used. One of those emergency-only cards I received years ago and forgot about. But Dylan had the number. He had somehow convinced Ford Credit that he was me. I just sat there staring at the screen, the engine still running, as every curse word raced through my mind. The kid who had spent months explaining why he couldn't keep his job at GameStop had just cheated me of a luxury truck he had no right owning. But here's something he didn't know. I was finished. I didn't call him, text him, or give him the opportunity to fabricate a narrative about misunderstandings or emergencies. The first call is to Ford Credit. I need to report fraudulent use of my credit for a vehicle purchase. Oh my. Let me pull up the account. Yes, I see the transaction. Are you saying this wasn't authorized? Unless I've developed multiple personality disorder, no, I didn't buy a truck. I'll flag this immediately. The vehicle will need to be repossessed within 24 hours. Perfect. Don't call the person who picked it up. Just show up and take it. Michelle, a Ford credit representative, was very helpful after realizing this was legitimate fraud. It turned out that they'd been seeing more identity theft cases recently, and she walked me through the full procedure. We'll need you to file a police report and send us the case number. The faster you do that, the faster we can get this resolved. Already on it. The second call is from Caleb. Are you busy tomorrow morning? Why? Want to watch Dylan's truck get repoed? Jesus Christ, what did he do? Stole $8,000 from me to buy it. A long pause. I'll bring coffee. Caleb later informed me that his initial impression was that Dylan had finally crossed a threshold that our parents couldn't overlook. He was also mistaken about that, but at least one member of the family possessed a working moral compass. Third, I called the Kansas City Police Department's criminal fraud hotline and reported identity theft, credit fraud, and forgeries. Case number, documents, and the works. Officer Hayes, the cop who took my report, had previously witnessed this type of familial scam. 9 times out of 10, it's relatives, he told me. They think blood relation gives them access to your credit. What happens now? We investigate. If the evidence supports your claim, and it sounds like it will, we'll file charges. Fair warning though, family cases get ugly fast. He was not kidding. By 6 p.m., my phone had a seizure. Call after call. Text after text. Dude, what's happening? Ford says they're taking the truck back. This has to be some kind of mistake. Can you please call them and fix this? I responded with a message. Talk to my lawyer. That was bullshit. I didn't have a lawyer yet. But Caleb's brother-in-law was a prosecutor, and he'd given me the name of Rachel Smith, a lady who specialized in financial crimes and reportedly ate fraud cases for breakfast. I phoned her office. I laid her the entire story. The truck. The photo, and Dylan's history of treating me like his personal bank. When I came to the section about his using my credit card without permission, she made this noise. Not quite a laugh, but certainly satisfaction. How old is your brother? 26. Good. Adults get adult consequences. Can you be here at 9 a.m. tomorrow? Absolutely. That night I received a call from Dad. Brody, we need to talk. This whole thing with the truck is getting out of hand. You're right. Your son committed multiple felonies. That's definitely out of hand. It's not that serious. He made a mistake. Dad, he stole my identity to buy a truck, not borrowed money. Stole my identity. He's family, Brody. Family doesn't sue family. Family doesn't commit felonies against family either. But here we are. I hung up. My phone rang again quickly. I turned it off. The next morning, Caleb arrived at 7 a.m. With coffee and donuts, we are ready for the show. We parked across the street from my folks' home and waited. At 8:47 a.m., a tow truck arrived with 2 men who obviously did this for a livelihood. The repo team was incredibly efficient. They simply linked it up and rolled out as if it were routine. Dylan dashed out of the house in pajama pants, waving his hands like he was directing air traffic. Even from across the street we could hear him saying, "There's been a mistake. That's my truck." The repo man didn't even slow down, just hooked it up and sped off. Dylan stood in the driveway for 10 minutes, staring at the oil smear where his truck had been. That, Caleb replied, taking a sip of coffee, is the most beautiful thing I've seen all week. Then I visited Rachel's office. Your brother's in deep shit, she continued, without bothering with minor details. Identity theft, credit fraud, forgery if he signed your name anywhere. We're looking at potential felony charges. What are my options? Civil suit for $8,200 plus damages for time and emotional distress, or we go full nuclear and push for criminal charges. Both. If you're feeling ambitious, let's go nuclear. Filing took less than 2 hours. By lunchtime Dylan had received documents and a court date. My phone has exploded again. This time, it was Mom. Have you lost your mind? A lawsuit? How could you do this to your brother? He's devastated. Good, maybe next time he'll think twice before committing felonies. You're destroying this family. No, Mom. Dylan destroyed this family when he decided to steal from me. I'm just making it official. She hung up. For a week everything was quiet. There are no more charges on my cards. No more panic calls. I began to wonder if the legal realities had made him see logic. Then he arrived at my job place. I was up on a ladder running wiring through a ceiling when one of my guys said, "Hey Brody, someone is here to see you." I came down to find Dylan standing next to my truck, holding his phone as if it carried the world's most important message. He seems relaxed. Humble even. I wanted to apologize, he explained. I know I screwed up. I know you're pissed. I've been thinking about ways to make this right. This threw me off. This wasn't the Dylan I knew, the one who approached every confrontation as if he were a victim of circumstances beyond his control. I can't afford a lawyer, he explained. I was hoping we could work something out. I'll get a job, set up payments, whatever you need. And this is where I became stupid. A part of me wanted to believe him. Perhaps it was wishful thinking. Maybe I just wanted to believe that losing his toy truck had finally shocked him awake. Can we talk? Just 10 minutes. I don't want this to go to court. So I told my staff to have lunch and walked with him to a neighboring diner. For 30 minutes, he was the brother I wished he could be. He apologized without making excuses. He recognized that what he'd done was wrong. He even showed me his phone, which contained 3 job applications submitted that morning. I know I've been a shitty brother, stated the younger gentleman. I know I've taken advantage. I want to change that. After he departed, I sat in the diner booth, thinking about dropping the accusations. Perhaps this was really unusual. Perhaps losing his dream truck accomplished what years of lectures could not. Then my phone vibrated. Reject the transaction. $3,200 at Argosy Casino Riverside. My heart sank into my work boots. The charge was from the same credit card he'd used for the truck, which I'd forgotten to deactivate because I assumed the fraud alert would cover it. While I was still staring at the refuse notification, another text message arrived from him. Guess your credit's screwed now too. Maybe next time, don't be such a dick to family. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to Rachel. Then I phoned the police. The Kansas City Police Department did not mess around. They arrested Dylan the next morning on charges of identity theft, attempted fraud, and violating a restraining order. It appears that simply showing up at my employment site was sufficient. 5 days in county jail. Not long enough to write a memoir, but enough time to reflect on his decisions. Rachel also got me a protective order. Dylan was legally prohibited from contacting me, visiting my house, showing up at job sites, or generally living in the same zip code as me. That's when my folks revealed their true colors. The voicemails began instantly. You've gone too far. He's your brother. This is not how we raised you. Do you want him to have a criminal record? How will that help anyone? You'll notice they didn't ask how I was. They didn't check to see if I was okay after being robbed and threatened by my own brother. Nope. It was all about poor Dylan and how nasty I had been. Caleb contacted me after speaking with our Aunt Sarah. Your parents are telling everyone you overreacted and that Dylan was just borrowing the money. Borrowing without asking is called stealing. Yeah, well, they're not seeing it that way. They're painting you as the villain who destroyed the family over money. 2 weeks later, I was back in court. Rachel presented everything as if she were giving a tutorial on how to destroy someone who thought they were untouchable. The truck purchase, the casino attempt, the texts, and his complete lack of guilt. Dylan arrived this time with a public defender who appeared disinterested in being there. The judge was having none of it. $8,200 in restitution plus $5,000 for emotional distress and court costs, $13,200 total, plus probation and mandatory financial counseling. Your Honor, Dylan lawyer explained, my client is unemployed and has no assets. Then he'd better find some, the judge said. Garnishment order approved. Any future income, tax returns or assets will be seized until this judgment is satisfied. Dylan's face turned white. Rachel tilted her head and said, that judgment follows him forever. Credit destroyed, background checks flagged, can't get decent employment, the consequences will outlast your anger by decades. That was all right with me. I wasn't doing it for money anymore. I was in it for the concept. But we weren't finished. Not even close. Dad texted me. Dylan is in serious trouble. We need to talk. I disregarded it. He called an hour later. I let it ring. The voicemail began with the normal guilt trip, but then he said something that compelled me to listen. He owes some very dangerous people money, Charles. I'm not exaggerating. I called Caleb to see if he'd heard anything. He had. Your brother's been gambling hard. Online poker, sports betting, even driving to the casinos in Riverside and North Kansas City. Apparently he owes some loan shark in Independence about 15 grand. That's when the true story came out. Dylan hadn't only been financially reckless. He had been living in a whole dream world. The vehicle was supposed to be part of an image-building campaign. He believed that if he appeared successful, he could recruit investors for his social media empire. Instead of investors, he drew predatory lenders, casino hosts from Argosy and Ameristar, and guys who crushed kneecaps for money. My folks knew, they had known for months. While they were lecturing me on family devotion, they were covering his gambling bills and attempting to repair him behind the scenes. The cherry on top, they'd taken out a second mortgage to repay the loan shark. $25,000 was put against the house, which they had owned free and clear for 15 years. They want you to drop the lawsuit, Caleb explained. They think if Dylan doesn't have a criminal record, he can get a better job and pay everyone back. I laughed. They mortgaged their house for a gambling addict, and they want me to make it easier for him. Screw that, and screw them. But Caleb wasn't finished. There's more. Remember Dylan's ex-roommate Brandon? The one who moved out like 6 months ago. Yeah, what about him? I ran into him at Home Depot yesterday. He's still pissed about Dylan owing him money. Apparently it wasn't just the security deposit Dylan never returned. According to Brandon, Dylan borrowed $1,200 for emergency car repairs that never happened. Instead, Dylan used it for some cryptocurrency investment that went belly up in 3 days. When Brandon demanded his money back, Dylan fed him a story about waiting for an insurance settlement that was completely fictitious. That same week, Caleb heard from Mrs. Harris, our elderly neighbor who had always been kind to Dylan. It turns out he borrowed $800 from her for job training courses that would help him find a better job. The courses were real. They only cost $50, not $800. Dylan pocketed the difference. She is humiliated. Caleb stated that she does not want to cause difficulty, but she is on a fixed income, and the money was very important to her. The big reveal came from Caleb's girlfriend, who worked at the bank where my parents banked. She was unable to provide specifics due to privacy rules. But she mentioned that my folks had been there a lot recently. Loan applications, second mortgage papers, and many cash withdrawals. He said my father appeared to have aged 10 years. That's when everything clicked. My parents were desperate for me to help Dylan. So insistent that families stick together. He's so willing to excuse his behavior. They had been funding his disaster for months and were running out of funds. The next family gathering was for my cousin Sophie's wedding shower. I didn't want to go, but Caleb persuaded me. You'll regret missing it, and maybe we'll learn more about what's going on. My parents were present, looking uncomfortable and muttering to relatives in the corners. I overheard Mom talking to my aunt about difficult times, and Dad saying something about temporary financial setbacks. During the gift opening, I noticed my parents handed Sophie a $25 Target gift card. These were the people who used to offer $200 cash gifts at weddings. The same people who had recently obtained a second mortgage to cover their son's gambling bills. After the shower, Caleb and I were carrying presents into our cars when Brandon arrived. He was apparently dating one of Sophie's friends and had received an invitation. Brody. Hey man, I heard about the truck thing. That's so fucked up. Yeah. Well, Dylan is going to be Dylan. Did you know he's been telling people you stole his truck? Like, he's actually trying to play the victim in this whole thing. That surprised me. What's he saying? That you got jealous of his success and used your connections to have his truck repossessed. Says you're trying to sabotage his business because you can't stand seeing him do well. Brandon also revealed that Dylan had sought to borrow more money from him just 2 weeks ago. Additional $500 for business equipment. When Brandon reminded him of the $1,200 he's still owing, Dylan like it was ancient history. The balls of this guy. Absolutely fantastic. 2 days after the wedding shower, Mom called me. Not your typical guilt trip call, but something unusual. She sounded exhausted. Defeated. Charles, I need to tell you something about Dylan. About all of it. I'm listening. A long pause. Can you come over? I don't want to do this on the phone. I nearly said no. Part of me thought this was simply another manipulative ploy, another attempt to convince me to withdraw the charges. But something about her voice stopped me. I drove to their place that evening. Dad was noticeably absent. Working late, Mom said. But I felt Dad couldn't face the topic. We sat at the kitchen table, where I had done homework as a child. Mom had made coffee, but neither of us tried it. I don't know where to start, she said. How about with the truth? She drew a hesitant breath. Dylan has been using our credit cards for months. We didn't know at first. The bills would come and there would be charges we didn't recognize. But Dylan always had explanations. What kind of explanations? He said he was buying equipment for his business or that he'd used our card because his was maxed out, but he was going to pay us back when his contracts came through. Contracts that never existed. The business that never existed. How much, Mom? $28,000. I felt my stomach drop. $28,000. No wonder they were so desperate for me to assist him. I'm so worried about him having a criminal record. We kept thinking the next payment would cover everything, she told me. He kept showing us these apps on his phone, these websites about cryptocurrency and online marketing. He made it sound so legitimate. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. Your father wanted to believe him. We kept thinking this was finally it, his big break. The worst part, Dylan was forging their signatures on credit card applications. 3 separate cards, each maxed out within months. When their payments grew unmanageable, he persuaded them to take out a second mortgage. He stated that the business was going to take off, that we'd be able to repay everything within 6 months. He had these charts, the projections. The mortgage payment is $380 per month. Mom answered gently. We'll be paying it until your father is 75. I sat there, contemplating this knowledge. My parents, who had paid off their house early, never had credit card debt, and had saved wisely their entire lives, had been financially devastated by their own son. Why didn't you tell me? We were embarrassed and scared. Dylan kept saying he was about to turn everything around. Mom, he's never turned anything around, ever, in his entire life. I know that now. We sat silently for a few minutes. Finally, I asked the question that I wasn't sure I wanted the answer to. What happens now? I don't know. Your father thinks we should sell the house, downsize to an apartment, use whatever equity is left to pay off the credit cards. And Dylan doesn't get to come back, ever. I told him yesterday. It astonished me. Despite their enabling, my parents had now reached their limit. She began to cry then, out of true anguish for the son she had lost and the life they had made that was now gone. I keep thinking about what we did wrong, where we went wrong. Maybe if we'd been stricter when he was younger. Dylan is 26, he made adult choices. This isn't your fault. I intended it. My parents were victims as well as enablers. They had been duped and lied to by someone they absolutely trusted. Before I departed that night, Mom asked me one more thing. Do you think he'll ever get better? Do you think he'll ever change? I thought about it for a bit. Not until he faces real consequences. The federal case was solid. There's too much evidence. There are too many victims. There were too many lies that were easily disproven. When the prosecutor detailed Dylan's schemes, the truck fraud, the casino attempts, the credit card theft from our parents, and the money he stole from Brandon and Mrs. Harris, it formed a picture of someone who had been scamming everyone in his life for more than a year. Dylan attempted to plea bargain. The feds offered 18 months if he made full compensation to everyone. The problem was that he owed around $42,000 total to all victims and had a negative net worth. My parents had already depleted their savings trying to cover his gambling bills. They had taken out a second mortgage for $25,000, but still couldn't pay off everything he owed. The trial lasted 3 days. On day 2, I testified about everything, from the truck purchase to the casino efforts. Dylan received 2 years in federal jail, 3 years probation, and full restitution for everyone he defrauded. My parents lost their home 6 months later, having to sell it to pay off the second mortgage and cover what they could of Dylan debt. They are currently renting a 2-bedroom flat in Raytown. But here's the thing with consequences. They don't end when the gavel falls. When Dylan was released after 18 months in prison, he discovered what life is like for a federal felon. Background checks are performed on all employment applications. Credit reports indicated multiple fraud convictions. Landlords who refused to rent to someone with his background. Caleb kept me informed via the family grapevine. Dylan was couch surfing, picking up cash-only day labor wherever he could find it, and being turned down for every serious job when they checked his past. The internet made matters worse. Every potential employer who investigated his name discovered the same information. Federal convictions for identity theft and fraud. He was unable to get a genuine job within 6 months after being released from prison. He couldn't rent an apartment without someone conducting a background check and rejecting his application. Even when he tried to use false references, a Google search of his name revealed the entire tale. He attempted migrating to many cities. It did not matter. Your criminal record follows you around, and his was very damaging. Last I heard, he was staying in a weekly hotel in Independence, surviving on odd jobs and food assistance. My parents contacted Caleb one last time. They wanted to know whether I'd consider helping Dylan get back on his feet now that he'd paid his debt to society. Caleb gave my response. That debt follows him forever. If they don't like it, they can move to Independence and help him personally. A year later, I received a wedding invitation through the mail. Not from family, but from Rachel, my lawyer. She was getting married to a prosecutor she met while working on Dylan's case. She pulled me away during the reception. "You know, your brother's case made my reputation. I've gotten dozens of financial fraud clients since then. Happy to help. There's something else. Your brother was arrested again last month. Check fraud in Arkansas." It appears that certain things never change. I was not surprised. People like Dylan do not learn. They simply find new victims in different locations. But this time, it wasn't my problem. I drank my drink and drove home to my paid-off house in my paid-off truck, feeling good about my strong money account and clear conscience. Some bridges are designed to be burned, salted and nuked from orbit. Just to be sure. Dylan learned his lesson the hard way.